Chapter 226. The cultural festival ends. I'm so tired. Aman heard the school broadcast announcing the end of the cultural festival and let out a long sigh. After his parents left, his classmates teased him lots. He was already tense from doing service work, which he was suited for, and with his classmates piling on, the mental stress extended to his body. But those too came to an end. Once he heard the repeated broadcast, Amani stretched out his shoulders in relief. Oi, good work, everyone. We sure were busy. Once they were sure the customers left and the broadcast was aired, Itsuki laughed away and gathered all the students. The seemingly short yet long cultural festival came to an end, and everyone's face was brimming with accomplishment, and also fatigued. For they were so busy. Let's not be so hasty to count the money. We need to clean up, and that's the toughest part. It's going to be harder than the setup. The school informed us that they'll handle the trash, so please sort them out ASAP. Don't wanna, it's too troublesome. The class lost all motivation once cleaning up was mentioned, and there was a lingering laziness. A man gave a wry smile as he understood them while getting ready to clean up, stuffing the trash from their business into a bag as he heard Itsuki's voice. All right. We can celebrate once we're done. We get a day off tomorrow, so let's get down to work. Same to you. I'm working and giving instructions, Ao. I know, stop messing around. Itsuki proudly puffed his chest as he stood before the blackboard, and some sniped back at him. He started laughing and joined in on the cleaning, probably because he was used to it. We'll be required to pay a certain sum after the celebration, so don't spend all the earnings. Uh-oh, do I have money down? You wrote your name on the book, saying that you'll be joining, right? If you don't have enough, go borrow, or you can borrow from me. 100 interest rate per day, by the way. What's with the high rates? Don't like it. Get to work, and I'll charge you less interest. You gotta work, though. With his classmates slapping his shoulder, Itsuki raised his fists, yelling that they would hurry with work before they would go celebrate, and cheered them up. Aman gave a wry smile as he saw this, and dumped the remaining cutlery into the bag. Mahiru, too, watched Itsuki. He really is energetic. That's how he is. Where is the celebration held? He said he booked a karaoke room, and we're free to join a second party. Family restaurant. They needed to state their attendance for the celebration party beforehand. Aman did not participate in the previous year, but Itsuki would not be the only friend there. There were Mahiru and Chitose, and he was on better terms with his classmates. Though a little embarrassed, he was going to participate. Truth be told, he really did not want to sing in front of others, and hoped to just listen, but Itsuki probably would shove the microphone into his hands, and he started to wonder what he should do. I told Mom and Dad since they'll be staying over, and it's okay for me to be a little late. I don't really like crowded places, though. We'll be going home after karaoke. I do intend so, too. Dinner is prepared. You're capable. I do have to do this, so that I can spare less effort once we return. Amane was impressed that Mahiru had plans for dinner, and quietly grinned to himself at the word return. Mahiru blinked away a few times in confusion. She gave a quizzical look, wondering if there was anything, but Amane did not answer her silent question, and merely shrugged as he focused on cleaning. Chapter 227, Celebration Party. Once they were done cleaning, Amane and the others went to the venue, feeling somewhat fatigued. There were 3 rooms booked, and the participants had to split into 3 teams, each into their own room. Itsuki kindly put those who were on better terms together. Aman's group consisted of the ones he had been talking to, Mahiru, then Itsuki, Chitose, Kadawaki, Hiragi, Kuju, and Kido, whom he had been talking to more recently. The girls found it a pity that Kadawaki was in this group, but the girls in this room had boyfriends and would not care about him, so thus they were all relieved while finding it a pity. On a side note, the girls assigned to the other rooms narrowed their eyes in glee and said, "Go flirt all you want with Shina-san," and Amane frowned back at them. Anyway, good work. Itsuki led everyone in the toast. His cup contained cider from the drinks bar, and everyone in the room did likewise. They merely gestured so, for it was too far to do so. Once done, Amane drank his cup of melon soda. The taste and fragrance of this drink was something unique to junk food, which he liked. Mahiru said that she wanted to try, so he gave her a sip, and she frowned. It seemed this did not suit her tastes, probably because she could not handle the carbonic acid. The teary Mahiru sipped at her oolong tea and leaned on Amane. She was tired and felt restless as so many people were at this karaoke session. Good work, everyone. A lot of it is thanks to Kido. Itsuki finished his cider, sat down, and nodded happily. The aforementioned Kido sipped some water and gave a wry smile. No, it's thanks to the owner being kind enough to lend us clothes. I didn't expect them to prepare this many. We'll offer a box of sweets next time as thanks. It's amazing. Ikun's being serious. How rude, Chi. I'm serious from time to time. How often is that? Once every half year? That won't do. Everyone burst out laughing, and Amane sighed as he looked at them. He did interact with everyone involved, but it was hard for him to say something when there were so many people. Amane was not as naturally cheerful as Itsuki, did not have the sociability, and he never intended to join in the conversation unless someone actually talked to him. Mahiru watched the joyous scene with a smile. She did not like the ruckus, but neither did she dislike it, and perhaps she was happiest just watching. Aman, why are you watching like it has nothing to do with you? Stop flirting and come here. All right, I get it. Don't stand up. It's squeezy here. The room was relatively wide, but it was inconvenient for 8 to move, packed even. Truth be told, he found it a hassle to wriggle here and there, and hoped everyone could remain still. Come here, Mahirun. Let's tease Ikun. Come on, don't do that, wait. Are you bad at karaoke, Shina-san? No, I cannot really say that. Mahiru fidgeted about, and Chitosi seemed to understand as she lifted her head. Ooh, and continued on. Ooh, Mahirun just doesn't have a song to sing and doesn't really want to. Basically, she usually plays piano tunes or some foreign songs with lyrics to study English. That kind of upbringing as to be expected of Shina-san. You don't listen to anything with Amani? I don't play any songs at home. Amane's room had an audio component, but it was more akin got a decoration. After all, he was either sleeping or studying alone in his room or reading. He would spend most of his time chatting with Mahiru in the living room and studying with her. What about you guys, Makochan? I just listen to some trendy pop songs. I don't really listen to any. Just the piano pieces my grandma plays, though. That's not normal, Speaking of music, Yuita. Itsuki suddenly changed the topic and clearly looked displeased as he looked at the gleeful Katawaki. Why didn't you tell us that you were performing a live show? I would have changed my shift if you told me. It seemed Itsuki had issues about Katawaki performing a live show during the festival without them knowing, and was slapping away at the table while not spilling the drink. Kuju was worried as the table was shaking, and it seemed he was present back then. We didn't call you because we didn't want you to cause a ruckus, for he muttered. Katawaki merely gave a wry smile at Itsuki, who seemed to have lots to say, but he looked unapologetic. I didn't tell you because I knew you'll do this. There's no reason for you to see. Aman and the others saw it. It's so unfair. It's nothing. And anyway, don't I always go to karaoke with you? Well, I just want to see you perform. Whatever, I'll let you off if you start a solo performance here. The ridiculous request had Katawaki lowering his eyes, and he met Amani in the eyes. Aman quickly looked aside as he had a bad premonition, and he could sense Katawaki sneering away. Let's drag Fujimiya down too. Why me? It's karaoke. Everyone has to sing, right? Not like it changes things. Whoa, more. Itsuki started adding fuel to the fire, for he sensed that Katawaki would sing if Amane just in. Chitose and Kido might be getting high too, for they started cheering and teasing along. Aman did not want to be a partner to a good singer, and turned to Mahiru for help. I do not believe I have heard you sing before. Aman-kun, It is a rare chance. She clearly was on Itsuki's side. Itsuki Kadawaki, you two remember this, and gave up as he reached for the microphone on the table. Chapter 228, Conversation During Karaoke. Perhaps it was due to the high they experienced, but everyone got Amain to sing various songs, and Amain was dead tired once he was done. Kadawaki, who also sang, remained calm, and it was probably due to the difference in physical ability. Good work, you sang well. Mahiru welcomed Amane back with a calm smile. She was more excited than usual, and probably was being high as well. You're rather into this too, Mahiru. After all, you look cool singing, Amane-kun. Thanks for the compliments. Your turn next. Chitose, I'll leave Mahiru to you. You'll sing with her. Amane called out to Chitose and offered his elated girlfriend as a sacrifice. Chitose showed a suspicious look once she heard so. All righty, leave it to me. But she grinned away and answered so. No, wait. Mahirun's happy. I want to hear Mahirun sing too. I think you'll be able to sing whatever Chitose chooses, Mahiru. It's fine, it's fine. There is a problem. See Chitose Sayanin. Come on, Mahirun. Everyone's going to sing anyway, and we're all excited. Aman waved as the excited Chitose led Mahiru by the hand. Mahiru gave Amane a begrudging look, but he was in her position moments ago, and hoped she would give up. It is what it is. So Amane nodded away as he watched the flustered Mahiru staring at the microphone in her hand, narrowing his eyes happily. Kadawaki watched on with a wry smile, eating fries. Will Shina-san retaliate later? A few hits at most. Even if she did, it was a cute revenge. So cute that he wanted to take the charge and watch her reaction. Kadawaki shrugged at Amane's nonchalant response, and with somewhat dazzling eyes, looked towards Mahiru, who started singing frantically. Mahiru could do everything except swimming, and singing was no exception. The good thing was that a peaceful Japanese song was chosen, and an elegant melody came from the clear voice, which got everyone to stop their chatter and be mesmerized. One could possibly fall asleep quickly if she was asked to sing a lullaby. Amani's face was a lot more relaxed. Chitose too sang well, her voice meshing well with Mahiru's soft voice. She was familiar with the tune, and had better sense of the rhythm and lyrics. In short, Chitose was technically better. She was overjoyed, and it seemed she would not let Mahiru off once this song ended. Whatever. Mahiru looks happy anyway. She remained bashful, but the displeased look she showed after being abandoned had eased up, and she seemed happy enough. She did not have the karaoke session experience many had. Amain was glad that she enjoyed herself. Anyway, you two are heading back, right? While Amane calmly watched Mahiru hold the microphone, Kadawaki leaned over and asked with a voice only he could hear. Yeah, my parents are here. Mahiru basically prepared dinner before going to school. Well, it's like you two are already living together. Seriously. Shut up. Mahiru would only return home when she had to sleep, dress up and get changed. She spent most of her time at Amani's place, and it was taken for granted. Nothing wrong with that. One could say she had completely integrated herself into his life. That means you two will head home right after this, right? The others might find it a pity, but not like we can blame you. I guess people will find it a pity that Mahiru isn't going to be there, right? Ahaha, you never thought about yourself, huh? Kadawaki patted Amane's shoulder with a wry smile, and the latter jabbed by at the belly, implying that he was unlike Mahiru and Kadawaki. He had started to integrate with the class, but he did not have their popularity. Even if others found it a pity, it's because he's already an item with Mahiru. For some reason, his classmates would watch over him, so perhaps that was the reason. Well, your parents are here. They're sufficiently worried about you to come all the way here. Yeah, they're worried about me all right. It's great that you have these parents, and that they're really getting along with Shina-san. Yeah, they treasure her more than their own son. Ahaha, but I think it's because they treasure you. Kadawaki said with a smile, and Amane widened his eyes, gave a slightly awkward look. I know that, and muttered, "So, you have great parents." Katawaki chuckled again at Amane's bashful look and gently tapped at him. Chapter 229, Return Home and Welcome. After karaoke, Amane left Itsuki and the others and dragged his somewhat tired body home. Shuto and Shihoko were already at his place as he had agreed beforehand, and they welcomed Amane and Mahiru with smiles. "Welcome back. You're not going to continue celebrating with your friends. I'm worried that we'll stay too late. I don't want Mahiru to be out there so late at night even though I'm with her, and she did prepare dinner." It was a little unnatural that his mother welcomed him home even though he lived alone. The same scenario happened back at his hometown, however, and it felt nostalgic. Mahiru was seemingly accustomed to this for some reason and accepted this situation. Perhaps it was because she was grateful for what happened over summer vacation, but she seemed elated to see Shihoko, and that was enough to justify his parents' trip here. She spoke with Shihoko with a calm expression, and Amane passed her by, headed to his room to get changed. Mahiru had gotten changed in her own house beforehand and returned to Amane's place. After he passed through the entrance, Mahiru removed her shoes as usual and went to the living room with Shihoko. Amane randomly chose a shirt from the closet, got changed, and went to the living room. He could not see Mahiru there, and the flax-colored hair dangled at the living room. "Anyway, how about your dinner, Mom?" "We had dinner outside. It was a sudden visit, and I did inform Mahiru-chan earlier. We wanted to stay at a hotel and not disturb you too. Thanks for the concern. I'll be staying over at Mahiru's place, though." There was one more activity for him, to stay over at Mahiru's place. This might be more important to him than the cultural festival. It was normal for them to not be disturbed, since they were usually alone together. Shihoko seemed enthused once she heard that he was staying over. "Oh yes, you did mention that in the day, staying over tonight?" "That's right. You can sleep around at home." Oh my, hehe. What's with this laugh? Nothing. I'm just guessing that Mahiru-chan will be looking forward to it. Nope, impossible. And don't poke your nose into your son's relationship. Even if they were going to spend the night together, Mahiru might be all the more anxious if he did anything. Amon did not show it, but he was being more tense than her. He never entered a girl's room before, let alone his girlfriend's. Of course, he could not be saying such things before his parents. He ignored Shihoko's question and turned to Shuto, who smiled back at Amane, clearly showing no intent to advise nor ask. "You have quite the good relationship," he stated, such a neutral thought. "Young man, it is fine not to let loose, but I never thought you would make so many friends. It is impressive. Who do you think I am?" "Hey ha, well, you wouldn't blend in if you didn't actually trust them. I'm relieved to see you on good terms with quite a few of them." Amane did inform his parents that he got some acquaintances, but it seemed they were worried until they actually saw it. "I never heard much about Yuda-kun from you. Didn't know you have such a handsome and kind friend. I'm wondering about that too. He's really a great guy. I think birds of the same feather flock together. It is because you are a good person, Amane-kun." Mahiru might have heard the conversation from the living room, and her voice was heard while she chopped the vegetables. Aman never thought much about being called a good person, but it was true that they got along well. Katawaki was a boy who garnered the attention of many, but he did not stand out, personality-wise. He was poised, kind, and might have gotten along with Amani, who preferred quiet. "You're making it sound like I'm like Itsuki. You two really care for your friends. You're worried about the Akazawas, and you're trying to help him, right?" "Of course. It's never a bad thing to try and improve relationships." Amane had seen his parents' love for each other, to the point where they were dubbed the lovebirds. It was from them that he understood their love for their son, and they were probably more amicable than many others. He had taken his experiences for granted, and though he did not want to impose upon others, he could not help but how that Itsuki's family could resolve this in some way. Itsuki's family situation was not as dire to the point of no return as Mahiru's. As long as they were allowed, a resolution remained possible. "Akazawa-san said that you sound dishonest, but he can tell that you are worried about him. I'll tell him to shut up next time." This is what he is referring to. Amane frowned once he heard the giggle. His parents too smile, either because of Amane's expression or Mahiru's words. Amane, awkward, evaded their stares and sat down on the sofa. He played dumb and was met with more laughter. "You had enough?" he grumbled, and focused his thoughts on the TV airing the variety show. Chapter 230, Choice. Pardon my intrusion. Aman entered Mahiru's house for the first time, and marveled as he saw the living room that was cleaned and devoid of unnecessary items. The decors of the room were a white and light green base, nary any unnecessary items, and was decorated just as she liked it. It was the first time he was entering a girl's house, and though he was initially nervous, his anxiety appeared to be eased somewhat once he saw how neat it was. "Please enter. It may be a little messy, though. You sure you can say that if we compare to my house a year ago?" Mahiru led Amani into the house, and the latter gave a wry smile at those remarks. Mahiru recalled the devastation that was his house back then and shrugged in exaggeration. "Well, that does not count. Do reflect back on how messy it was." "Ugh, I can't deny that. You are the one who mentioned that first. Given that you are working hard to maintain the current situation, I would say that if there is anything to mention, you do casually toss your dirty clothes into the basket and sometimes drop it on the floor. It is best of you to change this." "Yep, better take note. That is good." Aman usually would not allow Mahiru to wash his clothes, but she did see how he handled his laundry. Aman would flip his socks and clothes appropriately before dropping it into the laundry basket, but it seemed there were other aspects he had to pay attention to. Amane quietly noted to himself these issues he had to take note of, and as he continued chatting with Mahiru, he was no longer as tense. Once again, he looked towards her house. Her furniture was arranged neatly as expected, and that was what he felt on first glance. It seemed so orderly and so balanced, like a magazine. And thus, he felt something was amiss. "Well, your house looks pretty, but it feels devoid of life." "Sorry?" Mahiru asked with a wry smile before Amane could say so, and he awkwardly averted his eyes. Yes, the house was neat and cleaned thoroughly, but it did not feel as though someone lived there. Typically put, a house would show a person's interests and living habits, but there was nary of that. A simple word, cleanliness, would suffice. "It is fine. I too feel the same, and I have been spending more time at your place, excluding sleeping time." "Ah, I really have been spending time at your place. Nothing much changed ever since that major cleaning." Speaking of which, Mahiru hardly spent time at her own place. She had been at Amani's place before they dated, and Moreso after. Since she spent so much time at his place, her presence at this place would seem diluted. She really liked cleanliness, and thus all presence of life would be all the more non-existent. Amane felt warm and fuzzy within, once he realized once again that Mahiru was next to him. Mahiru then took a step closer and looked at his face. "So, your house is my house too. You have to keep things clean, no?" "Oh, okay." Aman was flustered to see Mahiru's bubbly smile and stammered. She nodded happily, for his reaction seemed to be within expectations, and invited him into her room. It was the toughest test of the day and would test his endurance. He passed the living room, but it was to be expected that he would be nervous about entering the room she usually slept in. He entered and found it to be the same as the living room, white and light green, and yet a little more glamorous. Just like Mahiru, the bookshelf was filled with textbooks and culinary books. There was a doll placed on a glass desk, the doll Amane won at the game center. The bear doll he gave her for her birthday was on the bed, along with a few other prizes won from the game center. They had no notable names, but the dolls were certainly cute enough. Amane remembered seeing a glimpse of Mahiru's room when Chitosi did a live video call at Mahiru's place. However, seeing it for himself was a completely different experience. His breathing was a little frantic due to his anxiety. The indescribable feminine sweet scent got stronger. It was a little different from the one on Mahiru, but smelled good all the same. "Please wait here. You can read any book you wish." "Okay." One had to wonder if Mahiru was nervous, for she did not express so, and let Aman wait while acting normally. On a side note, Amani had taken a bath beforehand, so he was going to wait for her. They had no plans thereafter, but he was really restless at the prospect of waiting for his girlfriend at her house while she was bathing. For the time being, he knelt on the carpet and straightened his back. She gently chuckled, took out 2 sets of clothes, and dangled them before a man. Just to ask, which of these do you prefer? Generally speaking, the 2 sets of clothes were nightwear, but they were so different. The first was made of white and pink fabrics for indoor usual. The top was a long-sleeved hoodie, accompanied with shorts. The cute design certainly had a girlish feel to it. The other was a white baby doll dress with laces and ribbons. It was not transparent, but it certainly exposed more than the other clothes. There was hardly a gap at the chest, and it covered half her thighs or so. Nevertheless, part of the décolletage and the upper arms were exposed. Surely it would expose more compared to the clothing she wore at Amani's place. Aman was stunned to see the 2 clothes, and Mahiru smiled. One had to wonder what her intent was. I thought I should let you choose since you are here. You would be happier. I think you can wear anything you want. Well, I want to wear something you like. I shall wear whatever you prefer. It seemed Mahiru really wanted Amane to choose. He had a look. There was no doubt both really suited her well. Truth be told, he could not imagine any clothes that would not suit her. However, his thought was that the loose indoor clothing might be more appropriate for Chitose than Mahiru. He felt that the feminine, mature-look baby doll dress would suit her better, but he had a feeling it would be a bad thing to choose that. She should understand that I don't mean anything, but my sanity will suffer. They would snuggle together for an entire night, and those clothes would give rise to many problems. Mahiru would feel awkward to cling together, and he would be bothered if he imposed his frustrations on her. He had a little desire to see her in the baby doll dress, but he pointed towards the warm, comfy indoor clothes. The loose one, so he said, and Mahiru giggled. I shall wear this then. Mahiru then lifted the matured-looking baby doll dress and kept the loose indoor clothing in the closet. So what's the point of me choosing? I had a feeling that you probably would choose that since it reveals little, but will prefer this instead, and only eschewed so out of embarrassment. It is obvious from your attitude and averting eyes. She was so correct, and Amani was speechless, his lips quivered. You didn't have to ask if you know that. Fufu, I wish to know what you like, Amane-kun. I was just checking. I see. This affirmation truly was bad for his heart. His heart and stomach were wincing away. She chose it out of consideration for Amain, however, and he was delighted. His lips were merely quivering, neither smiling nor cringing. I shall take a bath then. She ignored the conflicting emotions in his heart and simply left the room. Amane knelt in the room, humming away, and heard footsteps through the door, panicking even. Mahiru might have been acting calm and was really conscientious inside. Amane felt a lot relieved, but he had second thoughts since it was so awkward, and his body was searing. Aman purged away the imagination of Mahiru in swimwear as he knelt on the floor, waiting for her to be done bathing. Chapter 231, Pain and Happiness. Say you are not going to keep kneeling on the floor, no? Amani kept kneeling until Mahiru returned from the bathroom, and the latter looked confused at his posture. He did not look at her directly, as he did not know the consequences of looking over. She took the initiative to enter his sights, however, and stood before him. She was wearing the white nightwear, as she had said beforehand, and Aman's eyes were restless. As expected, her fine figure left him wondering where to look. Her chest was not that wide open, but there were distinguishable layers beneath the chest of the dress, emphasizing the contents. The white lumpy colors further accentuated them. The nightwear fabrics were not transparent, and the body lines could not be seen. Amain, however, knew some things, and his male instincts caused him to have unsavory thoughts. Mahiru had a thin cardigan draped upon her, probably as a last shred of conscience, and he did not have to turn his face aside, though it was too stimulating for him to look at. The swimsuit that once clung onto him exposed more, but the sight of her in her nightwear, fresh out of the bath, looked so innocent and tempting, attacking at his conscience and sanity. Ooh. You can wait on the bed. Are you trying to kill me? Why do you think so? It would be too much for him to wait for a girl on the bed. He did not dislike it and would really enjoy it. But it was better to keep his sanity intact considering what would happen next. Mahiru sounded conflicted and reluctant, and then looked at his face. Do I look good? Of course, of course. And you say so without looking at me. Do you mind? Amane cautiously looked towards Mahiru once she said so and widened his eyes. She too lifted her head bashfully towards him. Her white skin had a tinge of red, and her embarrassment was seeping out. Their eyes met, and she lowered her eyes. Her eyebrows shivered, and she buried her face into his shoulder. It is not that I am not flustered. I am working hard to tease you, Amane-kun. And no, you don't have to do that. I have to. I want to get one back at you since you have been tough to deal with recently. Get what back? The advantage? I am the only one getting all flustered recently. She murmured somewhat unhappily, squealed, and pressed her entire body onto Amane. Amane could not take this hit from Mahiru as his legs were numb and fell backwards. He did not suffer a hard impact thanks to the soft carpet and cushion, but his back still ached. He frowned, lifted his head towards Mahiru, and immediately regretted it. Her clothes and posture were truly bad. He saw a marvelous scene, and it was obviously not one to be marveled at. He averted his eyes, and she got onto him, staring at him intently. Truth be told, he did not care that she was on him, but he hoped she would get away from him, considering where they were at. She then clung onto his chest and showed no signs of getting away. Mahiru-san, would you mind? No. Say, I am doing this on purpose. It is fine. All the more reason why it's not. What's with this little devil? He shuddered and wriggled upright. Mahiru was clinging onto his chest, looking at him, displeased. I think Chitose and the others taught you something. Well, you don't have to force yourself. Do you think I am forcing myself that I am unwilling? Know that. Oh. Actually, I hope that you can be happy, and that I can give my all to you, for you to be enchanted by me. Why do you want me to be more enchanted? It's like you're a different person in front of Shina-san, so Itsuki once said. His infatuation for her was obvious. He wanted to treasure her, to dote on her. There was no way he could love her even more, and even if there was, it would end up with him being obsessive over her. He did not want to bind her, and her living freely was just as he wanted. He also wanted to avoid losing control of his sanity. He believed that if he was too tempted, he could love her to a point where they could not get off the bed for quite a while. He hoped Mahiru would control herself, but she remained on him, showing no intent to back off. You have become so adept at this, Amane-kun. It is unfair. I am the one who have been teased by you all this time. Even when your heart beats faster, my heart beats faster than that. Sometimes, I want you to know my pain, the unbearable, anxious, yet comforting pain, happiness that fills my heart. Mahiru murmured and brought her lips close. Her feelings were so intense, and Amane felt blessed as he accepted her kiss. Chapter 232, To Cherish. It was rare for Mahiru to kiss him, and Ammon let her be. Truth be told, he might fall over if he did not hold up his body with his hands, and if he moved, something terrible would occur. Thus he could not move. His waist was unstable, and he was filled with shame and anxiety once Mahiru expressed her love for him. Her movements were a little stiff as she hardly took the initiative. She kissed away, happily staring at Amane's anxious and embarrassed face. She too was so embarrassed that her cheeks were red and her eyes were moist. Even then, her expression looked so alluring. Beauties really could do anything. Mahiru saw Amane's expression, grinned, got down onto his chest, and he had enough. Mahiru-san, what is it? Actually, my butt's aching from sitting on the floor. Maybe that's enough? Amane just wanted to break away and get himself to calm down. But she might not listen if he said so. So he tried to plead using a plausible reason. She blinked away, I apologize for that, and got up from Amane. She was unexpectedly obedient, and probably knew that Amain had a different intent. Amain thought of retreating for the time being while Mahiru was away from him, but the latter, quite the observant one, clung onto his arm and prevented him from escaping. He tensed up due to the heat, the touch, and the fact that he was seen through, I say, and heard her murmur, "Who was the one who said that I would have it when we return home?" Ugh, such boisterous words you said. Amane had intended for something else when he said that, but she did not mind. But well, I did plan for this and I am glad. It is just that you always try to escape. Amane hoped that she would understand that he was trying to escape for biological reasons, but it seemed she was fine with whatever situation he was in, and did not mind actually. She probably meant something. Truth be told, Amane never expected Mahiru, who was so flustered when the stayover was suggested, to be so enthusiastic. At the same time, he knew that he was being so useless because he was rattled by her clothes. He felt it was reasonable for him. He did not intend to do anything when he suggested to stay at Mahiru's place, and naturally was disturbed by Mahiru's bold temptation. Mahiru herself might disagree with the sentiment that she just wanted Amane to understand her feelings. Amane, however, felt that it was a cruel yet captivating temptation. I understand your feelings. So, can you please spare me? In detail? Like, another piece of clothing or two? Nope. I shall not promise so, since I finally seized the initiative. It seemed Mahiru wanted to drive a stake through Amane's heart. It is a little embarrassing, but I shall continue as long as your heart jumps, as written in the guidebook. I say, what is that guidebook about? Mind giving your big brother one? We are the same age, just a month apart. That's not the problem. I'm very curious to know what's inside there. A secret. Mahiru clearly averted her eyes and latched firmly onto Amane's body, as though brushing this matter aside. I can change my clothes if you dislike so. Mahiru muttered so as she looked up at him, and he murmured as he wrapped his arm behind her back. He could feel beyond the fabric that there was something missing. The fabric was thin, the soft body, the sweet fragrance. Churning in the chest were the various thoughts and feelings, along with the looming desire. He understood that, and at the same time, he knew that he did not have to reject Mahiru. You know I won't exactly dislike it, right? Yes, I am asking just in case. Amain groaned, knowing that Mahiru was being forceful on this day. A voice rang from her throat, and she smiled happily. He dared not say that she was blushing, for his was moreso. You little devil. I did say before that girls can become angels and devils in front of those they like. Amain was peeved that the smiling Mahiru looked so smug, made up his mind, and lifted her chin with his fingers. He stared into her caramel-colored eyes, as though looking into her. Her eyes started to waver again. She's completely hopeless when she's the one being pushed around. Same old, same old. Mahiru was being very aggressive on this day, but like before, she was never one to stand up to others. This was probably the reason why she wanted to seize the initiative. Amane too might fit that description well. It seemed there would be quite the tug of war. Amane hesitantly kissed her once he saw her eyes waver. The sudden kiss left Mahiru frozen, but she liked this and did not refuse. And so he gave her a deep kiss, as she wanted. Halfway through, she started hammering at his chest. A voice was eked from her throat, either out of protest or something else. She shoved his chest before he could get the answer, prying the lips away with the body, and stumbled back, sitting on the bed. She blushed, glared at Amane with teary eyes. He licked his lips that were moist from kissing and went over to Mahiru, who retreated. You laugh at me for always running away. Aren't you doing the same too? No, it is bedtime. I am just getting onto the bed. I see. I'll get on too. Amane got onto the bed, and Mahiru had nowhere to escape to. Her body quivered, but she looked up at Amane defiantly, and stopped looking for some reason. It is despicable of you. I had you bath earlier because of this. What do you mean? You are still so alluring even after this while. Mahiru exclaimed her inscrutable thoughts and murmured as she snuggled under the blanket. Well, I have to get in anyway, so he thought, but it would be inappropriate for him to say so at this point. His eyes were at ease once she did so, and he was quietly relieved as he got next to her, embracing her little back. She shivered, he chuckled. She probably realized that he was chuckling from his breathing and turned towards him. Her eyes were so filled with shame, seemingly displeased, seemingly pouting. She was adorable. I wanted to tease you today, Amane-kun. You haven't had enough. What are you saying? Have you not turned the tables on me, Baka? Amane took a punch in his abdomen, but it did not hurt or itch. Mahiru pursed her lips slightly, probably due to the reaction when she hammered onto him, impressed and yet unhappy. And you trained. It is no good as well. What do you mean, no good? It is despicable of you. Mahiru slid her hand down Amane's shirt, towards his abs. He could tell it was due to Kito's influence, but he let her back. He did not have any particularly visible abs, but he felt that his body was firmer. Mahiru would surely feel something if she continued to fiddle around. So she fondled away and sighed. Amane felt ticklish and started to observe her. She might be reinvigorated again, for she blushed and checked his body. He did not expect her to reach beneath his clothes, but since she liked it, he let her be. I'm fine with you touching, but I'll act if you overdo it, okay? Mahiru tensed up the moment he whispered so, and looked up at him with teary eyes. He said that as a reminder to her, but it contained some desire. However much she touched, he would touch. That should be fine. He had felt ticklish right from the beginning, and was at his limit in various ways. He was terrified that Mahiru would touch places she should not have, and when that happened, his endurance would crumble. He said so, hoping that she would stop, but she pursed her lips and buried her face into Amani's chest. I too have care for my skin today. The voice seemed stifled through the chest, but it was unambiguous. This time, it was Aman who tensed up. He met Mahiru in the eyes right when she looked up at him. The caramel-colored eyes remained moist, as though a sweet droplet would fall at any given moment, timidly observing every action. Amane inadvertently gulped. She probably, no, surely, she would accept everything he would do and enjoy the one most important thing in her life. She trusted Amane and loved him. He too was confident of that. Could he reciprocate her trust and love? Various feelings churned within him. His body desires throbbed within, conflicting against his wish to cherish her, wrecking his sanity. He exhaled, and she trembled. She had entrusted her future to a man, and might have been feeling expectant and uneasy. The females were usually the passive ones, and if anything happened, they would be the ones who would have their futures affected. Upon that, Amane got his answer. Say, Yai, yes. Personally, I want to cherish you. Yes. But, well, I'm not at the age where I can take responsibility for you. If anything happens, you'll be the one with the most trouble. Ah, no. I'll take responsibility, of course. But with the law present, I can't guarantee my relationship with you. There was no other way to bear responsibility, but the law dictated that they could only marry at 18. If any mishap happened thereafter, she would have to bear a child as a student. It was best to be avoided. I love you and want to respect you. I won't stop you if there's anything you want to do in the future, anything you want to learn. I don't want to affect your life just because of a spur of a moment or my own desires. Yes, I'm prepared to spend my entire life with you, but you do not have to say any more. He was cut off before he could finish. He assumed Mahiru would berate him for being timid, but she showed an innocent smile, somewhat conflicted and yet somewhat delighted, as though it was expected. I know that you have been trying your best to respect and love me, Amane-kun. I truly am blessed that you cherish me so. She earnestly smiled, kissed him, and smiled once again when their eyes were so close. I too love you so, from the bottom of my heart. Before him was the lady he loved, giving a smile more blissful than anyone else. Aman rewarded her with a kiss, and wrapped her petite body once again. "Can I wait until your birthday next year?" The ideal suggestion would be to wait till graduation, but Amane gave this vague compromise as he was afraid he might not last. Mahiru could identify Amane's inner turmoil. She looked down, nodded bashfully, and buried her face into his chest. Certainly what welcomed her was throbbing heartbeat. Amane did not regret his decision. His desire to cherish Mahiru was without pretense. However, he hoped she would forgive him, for his body was about to creak. Yes? May I say something useless? Please do. I shall accept everything of my beloved, whether it is the dashing parts, the useless parts, or the pleas to me. He panicked a little when faced with her magnanimity, and kissed her neck, made up his mind, and said, well, can I touch you a little? He did not intend to waste the determination he showed, and his oath was not to be defied. However, his desire caused his head to overheat, and it was best if he could relax a little. Mahiru probably never expected him to say so, for she blinked abruptly, and her face clearly turned red. It did not mean that she would refuse, on the contrary even. She smiled and looked up at him. However much I touched you, though. What if it's not enough? I shall touch you some more then. She giggled and started touching Amane's belly. He lamented that he could never beat her and snuggled into the bed, no longer embracing her. Chapter 233, the next morning. Aman woke up to find Mahiru, whom he had cuddled to sleep last night, gone. For some reason, she was replaced with the teddy bear he gave her for her birthday. It was probably Mahiru's doing. She was no longer present, and movements could be heard outside. He intended to ask her later about the matter of the teddy bear in his clutches, and looked down at it. The round eyes had stayed by the bedside, watching the two flirt, and was showing a contented face at this point. Aman then recalled what happened the previous night as he looked on, felt embarrassed, and buried his face into the soft belly. The bear had a sweet fragrance, as it had stayed at Mahiru's place for a long time, along with a refreshing scent of vanilla. But that refreshing scent could not cast away the aftertaste. A shrill voice by his ear, the sweat sliding down the reddening skin, the tenderness he did not have, the moist eyes filled with trust and expectations. They lingered within him, becoming a sweet torture. He was restless on the mere thought of it, so he did his best to empty his mind and sat up. The door could be heard open. "Are you awake?" Showing her face suddenly was Mahiru. He could see an apron through the gap, and she probably was making breakfast. She blushed the moment she saw him. Just a moment, but she did not run away. "Breakfast is ready. Do get changed and wash your face." Yes. It sounded as though they were living together, and he felt ticklish. Truth be told, they were somewhat living together. "What's for breakfast?" "Rice dashimaki and miso soup, kinpiragobo, hiyayako, and shishamo. I apologize that these are all I have." "No biggies. It's more than enough. It's like I'm in a dream." "That is a hyperbole. I can wake you up if you're still in a dream." Mahiru returned into her room, went towards Amani, and pinched his cheek. It did not hurt, and it seemed she was flirting rather than waking him up. She had her fun, and Amani felt fuzzy, as though basked in sunlight. He gently put his hand on her neck. There was a red mark at the base of the neck where he touched, like a camellia leaf fallen onto snow. Both of them were the only ones who knew that the mark extended far beneath the clothes. "Looks like you have to wear a high collar together." It is your fault. I'm really sorry, I couldn't control myself." He knew, or at least his sanity knew, that Mahiru would be troubled if that was exposed, but his head overheated, wanting to trample over the fresh snow, and he instinctively brought his lips over. Mahiru quickly sorted out the clothes and remained silent, her face redder than the kiss. It seemed she might ignore him for quite a while, after having recalled what happened the previous night. She might have shown more first-time expressions than Amain, but it was best for him to pursue matters further and end up losing his breakfast. After all, Aman too was the same. He might not be able to rid himself of his memories just by washing his face. "Alright, do hurry and get changed and wash up. Cool your head a little. You should cool off your head too. You said something? No, nothing. Mahiru glared back, clearly looking more heated than him. He shut up and put his hand on his shirt. She then let out a pitiful shriek and hastily left the room. Amane could not help but laugh. You saw so much yesterday. The escaped Mahiru was so embarrassed, it was unlike the her yesterday. Even when she was so hesitant, she saw and fondled his body. He laughed and heaved his shoulders and got ready to get changed into plain clothes. Chapter 234. Cute Boyfriend. After breakfast, Amani intended to return home. Are you leaving just like that? But Mahiru's eyes seemed to imply this as she looked up to him. He could not bring himself to, and decided to stay until noon. She really did not intend to make him stay, but she might have unwittingly given that expression. It seemed that if similar instances were to happen again, and she were to actually show such a face instinctively, Amane's conscience would be heavily reproached. She smiled, for he would stay a little longer, and her face was a little red once she saw him a little restless in the room. She continued to cling on to him, however, and that was terrible for his heart. He should have been used to it, but the memories of the previous night's incidents flashed through his mind, and he was unable to calm down. Can you forget about what happened? That is impossible. They were seated on both ends of the bed, clearly feeling bothered. There was no way they could not think about that. The alluring sights were etched in Amani's memory, and so was the various expressions and changes in voices she showed. She started hammering at his chest, probably because she was feeling embarrassed, but it did not hurt at all. Clearly she was not angry, but just hiding her embarrassment. Even that gesture was so adorable, and he felt his sense of comfort surpassed his shame. It seemed Mahiru had noticed him smiling at her, and she pushed her fist onto him. Owie. So he called out and fell onto the bed. He fell onto the mattress, and the bear next to him tumbled off. He immediately grabbed it, and then recalled about what happened in the morning. You swapped in the bear, didn't you? I woke up and got off the bed, and you were looking for me on the bed, so I accidentally... Accidentally, huh? Say that aside, Mahiru. Can I check your phone later? He tried to bait her, and as expected, her face cringed. I do not understand, what do you mean? I think you can show me if you didn't do anything guilty. Can you show me yours then? Sure. Have a look if you want. Amani's phone did not contain anything unspeakable, or rather there was the photo of her in her nightwear Chitosi sent over. They saw some things spicier than that, however, and this photo was nothing. He nodded boldly, and her eyes started to waver. It is unfair. You have nothing to be taken advantage of since you are so honest. Aman-kun. Speaking of which, what kind of BGR books do you have? That is another matter altogether. So you mean there's another secret? Ooh. Ooh. He lifted his head towards the caramel-colored eyes, indicating that he was either going to find photos or the books she had. She grumbled a few moments and unwillingly handed her phone over to him. She then collapsed onto his chest, causing him to squeal while unlocking her phone. Aman usually would not peek at her phone, since it was a matter of privacy, but since she agreed, it was fine. On a side note, the password was Amani's birthday, which he found endearing and fuzzy. He unwittingly reached a hand out to pat Mahiru on the head. Are you angry? She asked timidly, her face half buried in his chest. Amane gave a wry smile and patted her head again. I'm not. I'll probably do the same if I cuddle you to sleep. I just want to be sure if I'm drooling. Rest assured, it is adorable. That doesn't sound assuring, found it. He hurriedly searched through the album, not wanting to see more out of embarrassment. The most he found were a few of his sleeping faces. He looked so comforted when Mahiru stuffed the teddy bear into his clutches, sleeping soundly. He was so contented, for part of his desires were released the previous night. He felt awkward that his immature side still showed in his sleeping face. He returned Mahiru her phone and told her it was fine. Don't show this to anyone else, not even Cheetos. She'll laugh at me. I shall not. I shall keep this cute side of you to myself, Amane-kun. I feel happy and yet unhappy about this possessiveness. He was glad that she was possessive over not wanting others to see her lover being so careless, but he found it gaudy that he was deemed cute, despite that possessiveness. It was one thing for a girl to be called cute. A boy being called cute was not exactly a compliment. Amain pursed his lips hard, and Mahiru beamed as she rubbed her face onto his chest. I do find you cute, though. Can't you call me suave, dear? You really are not in such situations. Aman was very peeved that she insisted so. It was a loss of his pride as a man, and as retaliation, he rolled over Mahiru and got onto her. Her eyes sparkled, and she froze. Amani smiled. You're adorable too, though. It feels like you are skilled at this when you put your thoughts into it. Amane-kun. That is not cute. I'm really not skilled at this. You're my first, and I don't want anything to do with anyone else. That is what I mean. You're always like this. Mahiru immediately got louder, like a can being crushed, and wrapped her arms around Amane's neck while he was atop her, biting his lips. She did not stop, for it might be due to her experiences the previous night. She took the initiative, and Amain was so happy, the back of his head got numb. One had to wonder if she was getting used to it, or that she wanted him to be shocked, but she started to plead with him with her clumsy gestures, eradicating the space between him and Mahiru beneath him. Once again he experienced the warmth he felt the previous day, and whispered, Mahiru, I shall continue to trouble you. You little devil. She deliberately taunted his sanity, and he grumbled. He was no longer holding back, and she looked elated, her face increasingly delighted with the bubbly smile on her face. You're too much for doing this to your boyfriend who's been holding it in. So he whispered and kissed her, robbing her from her joyous thoughts. After a while, she recovered. Her body melted away. Amane brought his lips to her ears and gently took a nibble. She shivered, and he kept this posture smiling next to her. Be troubled then. Mahiru's body would shiver on a mere breath. Aman smiled again, and she pouted as she hammered at him, looked away at his face, and resulted in him having to apologize. Chapter 235, Parents' Thoughts. Welcome back. Aman had lunch at Mahiru's place, returned to his place, and welcoming him back was his beaming mother. Her face looked glossy for some reason, probably because of her delusion. It so happened that half the reason was her over-imagining it, and Amain could only give her a cold look. Mahiru blushed, worried if Shihoko had seen through everything. Surely there were intense acts, Shihoko's delusions. You two are back. Ah, we used some stuff in the fridge. That fine. It's fine. I said you can use them. Forming a contrast with Shihoko was the serene Shuto. He was wiping his hands as he poked his head out, probably because he was washing up. I'll buy anything that's lacking. Just use them as you please. Oh yes. There is insufficient food if you wish to stay for a few more days. I will have to shop for some, since you are here. We'll just go buy them later. We got a car anyway. Shihoko really doted on her adorable daughter-in-law, tentative, and gave an excited smile the moment Mahiru mentioned that she wanted to go shopping. All right, Shihoko-san and Shiina-san will be out shopping, right? Amane and I will clean up here. You're not going, Shuto-san. We'll be staying for a little longer. We can talk later. You two ladies have something you wish to talk alone about, right? Well, you two men have something you want to talk about alone? Hard to say. But I do have some things to say to Amain. Amane could imagine what his mother would say, but not his father. He looked towards Shuto, only to be responded with a peaceful smile. It seemed Shuto was not going to ask Amane about what happened the previous night, which was befitting of his personality. Amane was really grateful for the respect shown, but sometimes Shuto's inscrutable thoughts left him awkward. Shuto's grinning eyes left Amane flustered, and he averted his eyes. Shihoko seized the opportunity to grab Mahiru's hand, intending to drag her out. She said she was going out for her own interest, but it seemed she had some place she wanted to talk to Mahiru with. Let's hurry on then. Now that we have a chance, tell me if there's a good cafe around here. Shihoko-san. Mahiru-chan, I have something good to tell you. We'll talk later. Something good? I'll tell you later. Shihoko's beaming face was unlike Shuito. Amane felt a shiver up his spine, but the duo left before he could stop them. Mahiru was concerned about Amane, but she followed Shihoko out. She probably was being considerate to Amane, and also curious as to what this good thing was about. The house immediately got quiet, and Shuto returned to the kitchen with a wry smile. Amane peered over, indicating that he wanted to help out. It was just an excuse. So Shuto smiled and prepared 2 glasses of iced coffee. His actions were so smooth, it seemed like he had expected so. Amane gently gulped, obediently took 2 persons' worth of drinks to the living room, and sat on the living room sofa. Shuto sat next to him, his face still looking serene, which left Amane comfortable, scratching his cheek. You want to tell me something, Dad? Well, I'm happy for you, since you're on such good terms with Shina-san. Thanks. Shuto did not sound like he was teasing Amane, but rather was impressed and relieved. Amane thus did not retort bluntly. He knew that Shuito was not one to question thoroughly, but he got tense thinking that it would be about his relationship with Mahiru. The question he assumed did not come, however. It's good to have a good relationship, for Shuito merely smiled happily. Amane no longer sounded as harsh, and gone was his vigor. You are really not saying anything? You're going to pout out of embarrassment if I do. Shut up. Amane turned his eyes aside bashfully, as though he was completely seen through, and he heard a giggle, and from the looks of it, it seems nothing happened. The voice was filled with conviction, more harsh than his mother's in a certain sense. Amane groaned as he turned towards Shuto, and was met with a smile. Well, I don't have to say anything more, right? It is your choice, and you definitely put in thought. That's the good thing about you, and also a detriment. I have to do this for the sake of our futures. You're so rational for a high school boy. My boy sure has grown. I know how smitten you are over her, however. I can't help it. Yes, I know. I'm the same after all. So Shuto chuckled and poised himself as he stared at Amane. Ah, Aman. You don't have to worry about money, though? Aman froze up the moment he said so. Both Amane and Mahiru had a common agreement that they would get married in the future, and thus he chose to treasure her body and future, that nothing physical would occur. The events that occurred the previous night were established based on that. Aman, however, had been thinking of practical issues, the expenses, the agreement of Mahiru's parents, and everything else. He did not mention them to Mahiru. He had the money to get married. He did think of the wedding, the residence, his income, and their married life. He could not simply get married based on a mere daydream. And thus he froze up, for he did not expect Shuto to mention this. Shuto gave a wry smile as though he had expected so. As your parents and Shina-san's, I wish to bless you too. I hope that girl will have her joy without worries, and that my son can be happy. We can help with that much at least. Shouldn't we rely on ourselves for that? How long will that take? Ugh. It was a little awkward for him. If he relied completely on himself, he could only prepare everything within the first 2 to 3 years of entering the workforce. He did not want to let her down over a wedding any woman would yearn for, and he wanted to see her dress in shiromuku. However, he had been struggling over this, as he knew he would have to keep her waiting. Are you just going to let Shina-san wait? Time is especially precious to a girl. Ugh. But, to me, a wedding's the start of your journey, the last major gift we can give to you as parents. Our adorable son and daughter will be leaving our hands, living on as a couple. It is best that we chip in here. Shuto finished with a smile, had some coffee to clear his throat, and continued. Of course, if you two insist on doing everything, I too shall support you too. If not, we shall bless you along with Shina-san's parents' share. Aman knew that Shuto and Shihoko knew about Mahiru's family situation and was willing to care for her instead. It was obvious that they really cared for her like their own daughter, a daughter-in-law. As Shuto said, he wanted to offer some familial warmth to Mahiru, which her own parents lacked. Amon knew that Shuto had no intention to back off, even though he said he was willing to compromise. Can I really accept this, though? Shuto seemed to have understood Amani's thoughts, and smiled as he gently ruffled Amani's hair. You never liked to fawn and ask others to begin with. It's not a bad thing to ask, though. Let us do what us parents should do. I think I've been fawning lots. Nope, you're trying to be independent, even though I haven't seen you in a rebellious phase. Your parents are feeling lonely, you know? Shuto's hand continued to ruffle Amani's hair, and showed no intent to stop. Amani did not stop him. He felt embarrassed and ticklish, but he did not dislike it. The trust and relief he had about his parents allowed him to accept these feelings earnestly. You just have to be a father and show us our grandchildren. Once you have settled down, you can then worry about being filial. Shihoko-san and I are still healthy, always taking care of our bodies, and our families are usually long-lived. You can continue to be filial until our deaths then. Shuto chuckled as he took Amani as a child. Thank goodness I'm their son. So Amani thought as he lowered his eyebrows, allowing himself to be treated as a child. Chapter 236, Secret Plan. Once Mahiru and Shihoko returned, Shuto's eyes and gestures reverted to normal, and he no longer petted Amane like before. That was a good thing, for it would be bad if he treated Aman like a child in front of Mahiru, though Amani himself was a little reluctant. He remained silent as he wanted to appear somewhat reliable to Mahiru, and tried his best to act calm as he welcomed the duo back. Welcome back. Done shopping and chatting? Of course. Isn't that so, Mahiru-chan? Yes. Shihoko smiled earnestly, while Mahiru appeared fidgety. It was extremely likely that Shihoko said something unnecessary. However, that was not the issue at hand, so Amane acted as though nothing happened as he received what was bought. He turned his eyes towards Mahiru, and she blushed, which turned his doubt into conviction, that Shihoko definitely said something unnecessary. He gave Shihoko a dumbfounded look, and she calmly smiled, looking accomplished, giving him the urge to immediately ask what they talked about. Please don't teach her anything weird. What? Of course not. I merely gave Mahiru-chan some suggestions on some important things to learn about in your cohabiting life together. You're not talking about the stuff we'll slowly learn about? It's not something a boy can teach. All right. You should learn from the wisdom of your ancestors, no? Can I ask Mahiru what this is about? Of course, you'll understand a while later. It will be embarrassing if a man presses on too much. Amane could only remain quiet at this. Since Mahiru was unwilling to talk, he understood that it was something complicated between the ladies, and he should not force the issue. However, he could not completely trust Shihoko, given her prior actions till this point. He had to keep this in mind, even though he might not be able to ask. He gave the beaming Shihoko a cold look, and took the bag of fresh ingredients to the kitchen, into the fridge. There was enough for 4, double the usual portions, and he felt ticklish for some reasons. Are you curious, Amane-kun? Mahiru washed her hands and poked her head out, so he gently shrugged. Can't say I'm not, but I chatted quite a lot with Dad, and I don't intend to say anything about that. We're even. What did you talk about? It's a secret. Amane smiled mischievously as Mahiru usually did, and put the vegetables into its section. Mahiru panicked and hammered at his back, resulting in him bursting out laughing. But I am not going to interfere with whatever you wish to give Mahiru-chan, though. Shuto said so after he ruffled Amane's hair sufficiently. Of course, Amane did not intend to rely on his parents that much, and wanted to work to earn money. At the same time, he could not let his grades slip, and he had to work harder to maintain them. Looks like I have to ask Kido. Kido did invite him to do part-time work, and though there was a likelihood of it being a joke, it might a decent choice. Amane was not one used to serving customers, but this meant that he could gain more social experience. Looks like I have lots to work on. He nodded away. Mahiru looked at him uneasily. It's a secret. So he emphasized with a smile, and happily shut the vegetables section. Chapter 237, Request to a Friend. I'll ask the owner. They said they're lacking manpower, so I think it should be fine. Aman hurriedly contacted Kido, whose number he exchanged with during the preparation of the cultural festival. She in turn gave an intrigued voice. Amane did not intend for Mahiru to hear, for he wanted to give her a surprise, so he said this at the apartment's entrance. He had assumed she would be troubled as this was too sudden a request, but he instead was troubled as it went unexpectedly smoothly. No. But is there an interview or something? Probably, since some vetting's needed. My recommendation means that you're fine personality-wise, but is Shina-san fine with that? We do serve our staff well, but will Shina-san get jealous? Well, a few female customers approached Amain during the cultural festival, asking for his contact, and Mahiru got jealous. Amain did not wish that Mahiru would be worried about his actions. Of course, he was not one to cast his eyes aside, and she probably trusted him, but her feelings were different matter. And anyway, why did you suddenly want to work? Amane clammed up the moment this simple question was asked. If he shared his secret with Kido, she would not mention it to Mahiru, but it was still embarrassing of him to mention that he was saving money to buy her a ring. Everyone he knew already understood how much he doted on Mahiru, and he knew that, but it was not easy to profess that he was going to buy a ring. But Kido might not accept his reason if he did not say so. As the one recommending work for him, it would not be good to hide the reason. It's like this. Mind if you don't tell anyone else? Especially Mahiru. I understand. You want to give her a gift, right? A Christmas present or something? Not that it's about next year. I want to give her a ring. Amane's voice got softer, and by the time he was done, silence beckoned. You're still a student, aren't you being too impatient? Amane anxiously awaited Kido's response, but after a long silence of 10 seconds or so, it's blinding over the phone, she muttered so. I see. Better not work at my place then. You're working hard for Shina-san, but if a boyfriend's going to work at a place where he's constantly harassed by the women, she's not going to be happy. It was reasonable, of course, so he replied so, and started thinking of other plans, like searching for a recruitment site once he got home. How about this, however? The voice came. I can recommend another cafe to you. There's one opened by my aunt. It's quieter and might suit your personality better. Sounds good, but you never worked there? Actually, I can't really handle her. And you're recommending me to her? I'm sorry to trouble you. No. I don't mean that. My aunt doesn't have kids, so she really dotes on me. I'm just worried that she spoils me too much that I can't be independent. Kido sounded conflicted rather than annoyed. The way her aunt treated her might be similar to how Shihoko treated Mahiru. But Shihoko clearly saw how reliable Mahiru was and wanted to dote, which made things a little different. I'll check with my aunt. How about you make a visit there once I'm done? You'll feel more at ease working there then. Thanks for that, but won't I trouble you too much? It's fine. I know you love Shina-san, so I'll give you a hand. You can discuss the matter of the ring with me, you know? Well, I might have to ask you and Chitose then. Leave it to me. It would be best to inquire girls on the matter of the ring. After all, Chitose had been concerned about Amane and Chitose, and it was appropriate to ask her. He hoped that they would be present to help if possible. It would be a long time later, however, so he made a vague promise. I'll contact you later. Maybe we'll talk in school. Once Kido was done, she hung up. Work, is it? Mahiru was resting in the living room when he returned. He greeted her, and she seemed surprised by this as she looked over at him. On a side note, his parents were cooking in the kitchen, for Mahiru said that she wanted their cooking for dinner. Why are you thinking of working at this moment? We will be in our 3rd year, and we should be preparing for our exams soon. He could not hide the matter of him working in any case, so after he mentioned so, Mahiru gave a very logical rebuttal. He wanted to keep it a secret as much as possible, until he handed the ring to her. But he knew it was unnatural to start working part-time midway through his 2nd year. I got something I want. Something I really, really want. Want? And also to gain social experience. Of course, the shift won't affect my studies, Some guys will retire from their clubs next year, and I should have saved up some money by then. I should be able to get back to focus on my studies before the mock exams. I think a condition is that I'll do as well as those in the clubs. I worked hard for my grades, and I'm not going to let them slide, and even if I do, I'm not going to use my work as an excuse. Aman had never worked, nor did he partake in any clubs, so he had more time than those who did join the clubs, and could focus on his studies. He would need to work harder if he started working. He intended to improve on his studies, to pay attention in class, and immediately grasp the knowledge he was taught. He looked at her sternly, and she awkwardly lowered her eyebrows. I should not say more about this. I shall respect your decision since you have put your mind to it. It is just that I will feel lonely, for our time together will decrease. The somewhat forlorn smile nearly shook Amani's resolve, but he was never going to compromise, and smiled. Sorry, but I'll tell you when I'll be on leave then. It sounds like that will be a problem too. Why? Well, whenever you say so, it seems that you will really dote on me. Aren't you lonely? There has to be a limit, or I will find it unbearable. Mahiru bashfully lowered her eyes and leaned onto his arm. He grabbed her hand as a practice and pulled her closer. Chapter 238, After the Rest Day. The rest day after the cultural festival ended, but the intensity of the cultural festival in school had yet to dissipate, and the students still seemed flippant. The class was a little more rowdier than usual, and from time to time, the classmates started talking about how certain so-and-sos from a certain class started dating, and one had to figure that the cultural festival truly was influential in inducing BGR. There were occasional stares upon them, towards Mahiru especially. Some might be discussing about her looks during the cultural festival. Morns. Itsuki entered the classroom, completely lethargic, and went to Amane, who casually waved back, mourning, observing the former's expression. Itsuki probably would be in a bad mood if Daiki said anything, but he seemed normal, and Amane was relieved. Morning too, Shina-san. Today? Good morning. Is something the matter? Itsuki naturally went over to Mahiru with a gleeful smile, but he narrowed his eyes in shock once he saw Mahiru's face. Say, Amane, come here. Eh? Oof. Just come here. Itsuki summoned Amane over for some reason, so Amane frowned and was dragged to a corner of the classroom. Itsuki then went over and whispered as though he did not want to be overheard. Say, did you cross the line with Shiina-san? Huh? Your head. Why else would I call you here? I think she's changed somewhat. The distance between you feels different. It's like you're married. Once Itsuki noted that the mood seemed different, Amane glanced towards Mahiru. She was seated quietly at Amane's place, looking at him intriguingly, and once their eyes met, she got shy. She's a little more charming. It's like she's already married to you. Just to note, we didn't touch home plate. Heh, home plate, huh? Amane noted ambiguously, and Isuki leered away as though he had seen through everything. Amane then jabbed at Isuki's flank to rid the latter of that annoying face. Amane did exert some strength into it. Don't be shy. But Itsuki teased, and it seemed it was not very effective. Amane then kicked him instead, and sighed. He was terrified that Itsuki could detect that change. But either way, he did intend to inform Itsuki and Chitose of his future plans. He did not intend to tell them how much he and Mahiru knew of each other's bodies, but he would at least mention that there was an order to his plans. I don't have plans for that. I made a promise with Mahiru. Promise? Yeah, until she's 18. I swore that I'll take responsibility for her life and asked her to wait until then. Once again, he found it embarrassing to mention this promise to someone else. Once he was done, Itsuki widened his eyes and looked at Amane with two conflicting emotions, speechless and yet impressed. Man, I'm rather impressed by your endurance and seriousness. But are you fine with that? In more ways than one. I think there may be issues, but there aren't any yet. I want to cherish her, and I'm serious. Since he found someone he wanted to accompany for the rest of his life, he should respect and cherish her. To be honest, he was a little worried that he might not last until then, but it would be shameful of him to break that promise, which he could not allow himself to. That was why he intended to hang on. I intend to live together with Mahiru after graduation, so I'm planning for that now. Planning as in, Fujimiya-kun morning. What are you loitering here for? Kido so happened to enter the classroom. Amain waved at her, and she gave the boys a skeptical look. You two boys are acting weird. Something unspeakable? I think Akazawa-kun's asking Fujimiya-kun something weird again. Am I that untrustworthy? Ahaha. Kido brushed off the matter with a laugh. It seemed that once she saw Amane, she wondered if she could inform him. She glanced aside at Itsuki, probably hinting at the latter's presence, inquiring if she could mention it at this point or later. Aman had no intention of hiding the fact that he would be working part-time, and he wanted to inform Itsuki of the reason. He took the initiative. Everything okay about what I asked you? Kido seemed relieved and smiled. My aunt said the part-time work is fine, so she hoped that you'll inform her when you're free. Yep, got it. We'll talk later. All right. Sorry to trouble you. It's fine. Aunt said she's happy that I'm asking her for something. Kido gave a gaudy smile, and Aman too gave a wry smile. Kido, who was so loved by her aunt, looked flustered, and Amani was grateful that she could introduce work to him. We'll talk later. Kido waved and went to her seat. After that, Amane looked towards Itsuki and found the latter nodding understandingly. I get it. You have it tough. Dad's willing to pay for the marriage and stuff, but I should at least settle the ring. It's my choice, and I should suffer this much now for my wish. You really put your mind to it. It's amazing, but what? Shouldn't you have discussed this with me? Itsuki pouted, and Amani widened his eyes, before ruffling Itsuki's head. I'll ask you next time. Itsuki seemed a little conflicted as he waved Amane's hand aside and slapped the latter's shoulder. Amane knew that Itsuki was being embarrassed, and grinned away just as Itsuki just did. Chapter 239. Friends Support. Ahaha, no wonder Ikun's pouting. It was after lunch, and Chitose was wondering why Itsuki was pouting a little this morning, so she called out Amane to ask. Amane obliged, and she burst out laughing, slapping his back. He frowned, but her attacks were relentless, becoming more intense, and even looking dumbfounded. Say, Ikun has so many friends who can help, but you asked someone else. It's no wonder that he's pouting. The closest to you other than Mahirun is Ikun. Ugh, I'm a little sorry about that too. Aman asked Kido as the latter had once invited him to work part-time, and Itsuki was unhappy about that. Itsuki was the closest male friend Amani had, and Amani had always looked to him for help. Truth be told, he was a little sorry to not look for Itsuki this time. Ikun hopes that you'll ask him for help. He always thought you two are buddies. I'm really sorry. If you're really sorry, how about you discuss something with him? You can ask him too. Chitose grinned away and lifted her head towards Amani, who froze up. You're not angry too, are you? Fufu. Chitose's smile was strangely glowing, seemingly sincere, but her eyes were devoid of a smile. She usually gave an innocent smile, but it was hard to describe so this time. Think about it. You spent a year and a half with him, and you're not asking him for help? It's no wonder he's sad. Ugh, I'm really sorry. I'll take note of that next time. Goodness me. You're overthinking it anyway. You can't keep it a secret from Mahirun if you don't tell us, you know? You want to give her a surprise, right? Yeah. Then you should have told us. Amani's flank was being hammered away, but he deserved it, and he did not reach his hand out to stop it. After punching Amane for quite a while, Chitose let out a long sigh and changed topics. Well, you're thinking about your future with Mahirun, and I can tell how much you love her. I can't imagine you being heads over heels for her when looking at your past self, though. Shut up. Amani, too, knew that he doted on Mahiru far more than he did before. He sensed that he was getting closer to others. It was not just thanks to Mahiru, he also had to thank Itsuki, Chitose, and the others. He was a little unhappy to be said that he was heads over heels, but the undeniable fact was that he truly loved her. Even so, he inadvertently frowned, for he was told this straight to the face. Anyway, I made up my mind so well. Please help me out. Aman wanted assistance from a feminine perspective, and also from a friend. He bowed solemnly to formally request, only to be met by a reluctant sigh. You don't have to say it. It's for the happiness of my good friend after all. Chitose? I mean Mahirun, you know. You're overthinking it. Hold up. Ugh, all right. Fufu, just joking. You two are important friends to me. The most important thing is that this ends well, and I'll chip in with whatever I can. A man lifted his head and saw Chitose giving her usual hearty smile, puffing her chest. He too was relieved and chuckled as he slapped Chitose on the shoulder. Chapter 240. Separate Actions After School. You got something with Chitose today? It was after school, and Aman intended to return home with Mahiru, only for her to reject him apologetically. He smiled, and easily accepted so. He never intended to bind her, and it was not that they had to be together. He was, however, unsure as to why Mahiru was concerned about his thoughts. I may be returning home late, but it should be fine with Shihoko-san all round. Why mention Mom? His parents had yet to return home. They planned to do so the next day, and said that they would be touring around. Shihoko-san said she wants to chat with Chitose-san. I think she's just say something unnecessary. Haha, I do not think so. Mom might. You'll have to stop her. Though he said so. Amani knew that there was a possibility that Mahiru would not stop them, as she too might want to hear, or that if Shihoko was too forceful for her to stop, he did not pin much hope into it. Stop her from revealing my black history at least. So Aman earnestly wished as he stared at Mahiru. He had no intention of showing such a passionate look, but she blushed and averted her eyes. Chitose, who was preparing to head back, saw that and laughed away. Yes, husband and wife, what are you doing? Just worried that Mom will say anything weird to you. You're finally not refuting that you're husband and wife. But anyway, I thought something happened from the way you two looked at each other. You don't have to worry. My mom's a blabbermouth. She's able to say anything with a grin. Oh? So you mean there's something embarrassing about you? Not really. It's just that I don't want her talking about my childhood. Let's put it this way. You won't like it if people started talking about your middle school days, right? Ugh, yeah. Itsuki only became friends with Chitose in middle school, and according to Itsuki and Kadawaki, the Chitose back then was a complete opposite. She was unwilling to mention them and deemed them a black history. You know what I'm going to do if you ask too much, right? So Amani hinted with his eyes, and she shrugged. Got it. Got it. She nodded away. But another thing, I want a proper chat with Shihoko-san. It's not about you. What's that about then? A girl's secret anyway. I'll borrow your wife then. Chitose grinned away as she latched onto Mahiru's arm, and the latter lowered her eyes bashfully, yet walked alongside elatedly. It should be fine if Mahiru was fine. But Aman was still a little worried about what they would chat about. You two aren't going home together? Don't talk about anything weird, though. So Amani sent his thoughts towards his mother elsewhere as he watched the duo being on such good terms, clinging to each other. Then, a girl suddenly appeared. Fukido? Ah, those two got something on. I see, Shina-san, can I borrow your husband? Huh? If Fujimiya-kun has nothing going on, I'll like to borrow him for a while. Ah, don't worry. It's not like that. I am not worried about that. Kido was asking Amane out, and it probably was about the part-time work. This might be the perfect opportunity for him to get everything sorted. With his parents around, the assumption he would be hired on the spot, a contract, and his guardian's consent. Are you free today, Fujimiya-kun? Yeah, no plans today. That's good. The shop's open. I can't really interrupt when you two are always together. Has it really been? We don't always stick together even at home. You say that, but you two are at the same place, right? It's like you've taken your home for granted. You two are really flirty. Amain could not refute when Kido pointed out that couples would not usually spend that much time together, and went quiet. Kido giggled, clearly enjoying herself. Well, that's because you two are on such good terms, and you treasure her, right, Fujimiya-kun? Yeah. Can't I? It's a good thing, actually. I feel warm and fuzzy just by looking. Shina-san's really doted on. The mention of Mahiru being doted on left her really bashful, and everyone else became a victim, which she somehow did not realize. It seemed Kido was being intentional, but as Amane owed her a huge favor, he could not begrudge her. Just don't mention why I'm working. However, Aman hinted so with his eyes, and Kido laughed and gave a thumbs up. He sighed and did not press on. Chapter 241. Matter on the way. Aman left Shitose and Mahiru and went along with Kido. It seemed he would have to take a train to the workplace, but it was a lot closer than Itsuki and Chitose's place, and he should have no problems commuting there. The problem was whether he would be hired, so he asked Kido. Don't worry, who smiled back. Aunt's shop doesn't have a lot of people there. There has been more customers there recently, and they're lacking manpower. They're hiring polite people, and they'll be more than happy to have your request. You don't have to worry about that. I don't know if I can be considered polite, though. Aman would never intentionally offend anyone, but his courtesy remained in doubt. He felt he knew some basic etiquette, but he dared not say that it would suffice. You're able to show the appropriate attitudes to different people, though. You're very polite to the teachers, and you act like an honor student. Well, they're our elders. I rather receive care from them than have their eyes on me. It's better to leave a good impression on the teachers. Of course, Amane would treat the elderly or his superiors with respect, but he had some indecent motives too, that a good impression from the teachers would grant him benefits in his grades and his future graduation. It did not encompass everything, but it was part of his thought process. He was not exactly a model student. Even he found himself a little indecent to actually think about these things. He shrugged, and Kido giggled. But that's good, isn't it? The important thing is to be polite and courteous. Act according to time, place, and occasion, and respect others. Whether you have the motives, the only thing that can be seen is the outcome. You're that kind of person, Kido. Didn't think so? I'm actually capable of acting based on the situation. I'm not going to seek the benefits in everything, but I'll do so in certain areas, but that's to be expected. I can't just always act on goodwill. Kido made it sound easy, but the thought process was serious by itself. Amane's eyes widened, partly not out of malice or disdain, but more of a kindred spirit. It's the same this time. I'm suggesting this because it benefits me too. It's not completely out of goodwill. One could see how kind Kido was from how she could easily say this. With a slightly wry smile. What's the benefit this time? Amane asked. Ooh, I want Sokshin to have more friends. Kayano? Yeah, actually, he's very honest, always spacing out, and doesn't have much interest in anything else. But he does have a good impression on you, and he probably gets along well with a calm person like you. That's what I thought, and since you're looking for part-time work, I introduced my aunt's shop to you to solve the manpower issues, and also because Sokshan's working there. Sorry, but it really helps me out a lot here. Kido apologized, sounding rather despondent. Amani shook his head and smiled. Don't worry. I'm a little shocked to know now that Kayano's working there, but you're introducing work for me. I'm more relieved that a schoolmate's there. Really? Thank goodness. Kido's tension was immediately gone, and Amane firmly believed then that Kido was still a good person. That aside, your boyfriend's working at your aunt's, but you're not working there? Ugh, well, my aunt likes me, and she loves it when Sokchan and I are together. She's giving us happy looks whenever we're together, and we can't get work done. She really doted on us since young. Also, whenever Sokchan's next to me, I'll look at him and he'll go all stop, your drool's coming out. Puh. Yo, you're laughing? I know the time and place. I'm not going to drool in front of anyone else. Kido raised her eyebrows, her face somewhat blushing, but all the vigor was gone from her words, and Amain wanted to burst out laughing. He decided not to play pretense, and deliberately let it out. Chapter 242. Workplace. Amon coaxed Kido, and they finally arrived at a tranquil cafe. It was elegant, seemingly directed at an older demographic, and gave a posh vibe. It's really here? What are you wondering about? It's quiet. Isn't it good? Looks good. But isn't it inappropriate for students to work here? That's why I'm getting a reliable one like you here. All right, go greet Aunt first. Though I don't really want to go in, so Kido quipped while giving an enthusiastic facade. Amani followed Kido with a wry smile, curious as to what kind of person this aunt was. He opened the heavy doors, and there was a light doorbell chime, nostalgic even. Kido led Amani into the cafe, and the interior was no inferior to the exterior. Simplistic, elegant, white and arc oak as base colors. The shop thoroughly swept and cleaned, brimming with sophistry. There was a bookshelf filling an entire wall, crammed full with books. There were only a few seats on first glance, incomparable to those chain cafes, and it was obvious that it was a cafe manned by a sole proprietor. This was the one difference from a chain cafe. It was very quiet, and a small space ideal for relaxation. It so happened that there was no customer, and Amain scanned the shop. Entering from the inside door was a lady of vague age, dressed in a navy blue apron. She was a calm lady, and appeared to be a dozen years older than him. She was a long, black-haired beauty, who appeared to be suitable for a cafe or an antiquarian bookshop. She was so serene, it was hard to believe she was Kido's aunt. "Oh, Ayaka-san, welcome. It has been a while, Aunt Fumika." Kido bowed politely, and the lady called Fumika gave Kido a serene look, smiling. "Glad to see you here. You aren't here whenever Soji-kun is around. I'm a little lonely." "Ooh. Sorry. I'm worried about disturbing you, Aunt." "What's there to worry about? I'm happy just to see you two. I'm more motivated to work. That's a problem too." It seemed Kido's little murmur did not reach the lady's ears. Amon watched the duo from behind and looked confused. The lady appeared elegant in appearance and gestures, and there was nothing he could infer to suggest that Kido had trouble dealing with her. He could only feel troubled, and it seemed the lady was a normal one, just from observing their conversation. Truth be told, her eyes were simply emitting familial love towards Kido. He did not understand why Kido said that she could not handle her aunt. People had aspects they could not deal with, and though there was nothing more to it, the situation left him unable to accept. The lady suddenly looked towards Amon, while Kido looked a little timid. Her dark black eyes appeared to be probing something for a single moment, only to become tender. "So this is the part-timer you're introducing, Ayaka-san." "Ah, yes. He wants to work. Fujimiya-kun, this is the owner of the shop, Fumika Itomaki-san, my paternal aunt." "I'm a man, Fujimiya. I'm grateful to have your precious time." "Well, it's fine. It's something Ayaka-san requested. Her recommendations are great, and I think it should be fine." Itomaki showed a tender smile, scanned Amane up and down, and smiled. "Anyway, what's your relationship with Ayaka-san?" "Just classmates. She's a friend of my lover." A strange chill struck Amane for some reason, so he insisted. Itomaki's smile grew radiant, and the intimidating chill vanished. It seemed this was the correct answer. "That's good. Ayaka-san and Suji-kun are always so lovey-dovey. It'll be troublesome if she has an affair." "That's impossible. I made a promise to spend my eternity with my lover." "Wow, that's amazing." Her dark black eyes immediately sparkled, glowing even. Amon inadvertently retreated, but Itomaki did not mind as she blushed, looking like a maiden in love. Amon then started to understand, little by little, what Kido was bad at dealing with. "You made up your mind at this age? That's great. Is this also the reason why you want to work?" Well, I want to give her a ring." "Wonderful. Yes, yes, if you're willing, please work here." "It's decided?" "Well, I already knew that." Amani was stunned to be hired without a proper interview. Kido looked dumbfounded and perturbed and sighed, while Itomaki grinned away, clearly elated. "Aunt, please don't ask too much." "Oh my, I won't ask about anything he won't talk about. But do you mind telling, how did you two get together? Please hold back a little. Fujimiya-kun will be pitiful if he ends up as part of your hobby and work. I'll ask for consent. Just a little background, maybe? Hobby and work. Aunt Fumika's actual job isn't the cafe. She's actually an author, and working on a few other stuff. But for some reason, she runs a cafe. And amazingly, she's earning money, Kido muttered. Amain turned towards Itamaki, who was giving a really meaningful smile. Of course, I'll run the cafe properly and ensure that it won't close. I'll pay you sufficiently. Aunt, do pay their salaries on time. Don't give them money straight out of your pockets. You don't have to worry about that. Kido started to lecture the frowning Itomaki. Amane did not know if he could work here, and started to worry. Chapter 243. Meet up after returning home. For good or bad, Aman was hired on the spot, and after receiving the contract form, he returned home. It was said to be an interview, but it was merely a meet-up. It seemed Itomaki was really fond of him, and he was relieved. He did not know if it would be a problem if he agreed so readily, but it was a good thing to have a job. All he needed was a signature and a stamp from himself and his parents, and send the contract over. Kido apologized to Amane on the way back, but Amane already heard from Kido that Itomaki had a strong personality, and it was no wonder then that Kido was terrified. Itomaki was someone who would impose herself, though in a different way from Shihoko. I'm back, where Mahiru and Mom. They said they'll be out for dinner. 2 of them. No, 3. It's too sudden, so I'm staying home to watch the house. I'll be making dinner tonight. Oh. Shuto welcomed Amane home, said so, and Amane responded. Amane did hear that the ladies were going out, but did not expect them to eat out for dinner. It certainly showed that they really got along well, which was a good thing. Too bad, though, that Mahiru was not around to cook, for it was what Aman looked forward to for the whole day. Of course, he had nothing to complain about Shuto's food. His father liked to cook, and was good at it, exceptionally good. Amane was familiar with the tastes. But to him, the matter was simply that Mahiru's cooking was special. Don't show your disappointment that much. I don't mean that. All right. Who knows how many times you'll get to eat your parents' cooking. Just be patient with me. You'll get to eat her cooking starting tomorrow. Shuto sounded as though he did not have long to live, but he probably meant that once Amane graduated from high school, he would get married, start a family, and this would be one of the few times he would get to eat Shuto's cooking. His parents would go on regular hospital visits and were still relatively healthy. Their families were rather long-lived, and a man did not have to worry about that. In any case, Shuto was teasing Amane. Amane frowned, and Shuto merely chuckled. He turned his head aside and went to his room to get changed. After having his father's meat sauce pasta, Amane took a little break and then heard the door unlocked. Mahiru and his mother should be back. He went to the door since it was not often that he got to welcome Mahiru back. They were there, holding a bunch of bags. Why so much stuff? Don't worry, we got yours. I don't care about that. I'm just wondering why you have so many. What did you buy anyway? I wanted to buy clothes for Mahiru-chan. Cute little things. I also bought some clothes she chose for you. She really wants you to wear them, you know? Well, if you're saying really, I know that means they aren't clothes I'll usually wear. Amain was conflicted that his mother bought clothes for him. Since Mahiru chose them, however, it probably was not too outlandish. He would ask Mahiru about it later on. In any case, there were too many bags, and before he could point that out, Shihoko gave a hearty smile and passed Amane by. Amane then looked at Mahiru, who stayed behind. There's nothing weird, right? There is nothing weird. Sure, let's go with it. Aman was relieved, while Mahiru looked skeptical for some reason and received the bags from her. He did not know if they were hers, but he could not let her hold them. Anyway, how is the visit to the workplace? Well, liked me enough, said I'm hired. How is the owner like? Actually, she's a big sister with quite the personality, I guess. Big sister? Don't worry. She loves to see couples and watch them closely. She wants to hear how we got together too. Amane prefaced this before Mahiru was about to be jealous, and she blushed, shriveling in embarrassment. I am not doubting anything, you know. I am just thinking, what will happen if she falls for you? No way, no way. She will. Mahiru emphasized so for some reason, and Aman responded with a wry smile, gently patted her head, feeling sorry for worrying her. The somewhat displeased look she had initially started to ease up, and so Amane gently slid his hand through her hair, enjoying that softness. Even if that's the case, I won't agree. I'll quit my job if it affects business. You do not have to do so. I am just a little frustrated. Well, if my girlfriend's unhappy, I might as well not work there. I'm not aiming to work there. I'm aiming to get enough money. It seemed nobody would actually hit on Amane, and if there was a really unlikely instance happening, he would have to look elsewhere, even if he was sorry to Kido. The job was for the sake of granting Mahiru happiness, and if he ended up causing her sadness, he could actually leave. There were other means. So don't worry. So Amane added on, and Mahiru buried her face into his chest. What is it? This is what I like about you. This too, fool. Amane teased Mahiru, who seemed to pout as she headbutted his chest. He took it on with a smile and gently patted her back. Chapter 244. The Next Day's Conversation. So you made up your mind. Upon hearing Itsuki's question the next day, Amane nodded earnestly, and Itsuki shrugged. I don't have to worry about anything if it's Kido's recommendation. And anyway, it's a good thing that you settled on one. I'm just wondering what you have to say. Well, she's quite the personality. If you say so, then she probably is. Now I'm curious, Itsuki leaned his entire body onto the chair, and Amane showed a wry smile, but he did not intend to say so. If he did, Itsuki would probably visit him soon. At the very least, given that he would be starting work, he did not intend for any of his acquaintances to visit him until he got used to it, or even Mahiru. Mahiru kicked quite the fuss when Amane told her so in the morning, and 10 minutes or so was spent coaxing and doting on her. Speaking of Mahiru, she was chatting with Chitose, and it seemed the latter was leering at him. Amane decided to ignore her, for any reaction he showed would make Chitose gleeful. Well, I think she does have her quirks, but I should be able to work there. Kido said that if there's anything, I can look for Kayano. Ah, her boyfriend, right? The guy with the hidden muscles? He'll probably feel weird about it if you say that to him, and he'll give Kido a condescending look. Kayano would most probably direct his ire towards Kido, who pointed this out, rather than the person saying so. Kido herself probably showed no remorse, and Kayano really had it tough. Well, I'm quite relieved that there's someone I know there. According to the owner, the regulars are usually of the older demographic, easygoing folk, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Oh, that's good. Anyway, congrats on confirming your part-time job. If there's anything, don't forget to discuss with me next time. All right. I'll rely on you, buddy. It seemed Itsuki still had a grudge over it. Amane slapped Itsuki hard in the back, and the latter appeared to be hiding his embarrassment as he turned his lips into a scowl, slapping back at Amane's back with more strength. It was his show of friendship, you bastard, and Amane coughed as he laughed, gently nudging his fist onto Itsuki's cheek. While giving the tense cheek a strange attack, Amane glanced aside at Mahiru. She was looking at them with her cheeks puffed, seemingly displeased. She probably was unhappy that she could not visit him at his workplace. However, it seemed she could understand the rationale. She agreed to compromise during their sweet time in the morning, so it should be fine. Itsuki looked over at where Amane was looking. You really are loved, so he suddenly teased. Amane frowned, and Itsuki gently shook off the fist, laughing. Anyway, what did Shina-san, Chi and your mom buy yesterday? Chi said that she had fun choosing your clothes. What did Shina-san buy? Do I have to say it? Yeah, the buddy who abandoned me. You still have a grudge over that What's that actually, cat pajamas? Aman recalled what Mahiru took out from the bag the previous night, and unwillingly said so. Itsuki immediately burst out laughing. You, wearing cat pajamas? Shut up. Mahiru will be wearing bunny pajamas, it's fine. It was obviously shameful for someone of this age and physique to wear cute pajamas to sleep, but since Mahiru gave him expectant looks, he had no choice but to wear it. And thus, Mahiru bought for herself pink bunny-themed pajamas, and he wanted her to wear it during the next stayover. It was a lot healthier than the baby doll dress she wore the last time, and he could last longer. His heart would be more at ease. I'll get Sheena-san to send over a photo of you in your pajamas. Oi, stop it. It's fine. It should be cute, yeah. Hide your wincing lips when you say that, you idiot. The ends of Itsuki's lips were twitching, and he made a strange resolve. Amane slapped at his shoulder, and he did not retaliate, instead shivering and reining in his laughter. They really get along well, of course. And a little further away, Shitos and Mahiru nodded away as they chimed in. Amane grimaced and launched gentle attacks on Itsuki. Chapter 245. Having lunch with the tentative colleague. Usually, Amane would be eating lunch together with Mahiru, but on this day, he ended up eating with Kido and Kayano on Kido's invitation. Kido did not mention so, but she probably intended for it to be an icebreaker between Amane and the soon-to-be colleague Kayano. Amane was summoned to the rooftop, and it seemed Kayano was already there with a leisure sheet laid out. He did not move, and might have known that Amane would be here. So anyway, Fujimiya-kun and Sokchan will be working together. Amane took a corner of the sheet and sat down. Kido looked at him and gave a genial smile. Oh, so Ayaka dragged you down? H, how rude. I just chose someone appropriate for an appropriate workplace. Kido's angry side seemed a little more immature than her usual self, and she probably only showed this side to Kayano. Anyone watching would feel warm and fuzzy. Actually, no. I suggested this. Kido helped me out. Really? But isn't Fumika-san troubled? Well, Aman was a little stumped, for he did not expect Itomaki to be such a person. Nevertheless, she did not seem to be a bad person, just that she might be a little more honest if sufficient fuel was provided, and he should be fine if he provided a story that did not involve him much. He could mentally prepare himself, however, if he was sufficiently reminded beforehand. He really wanted to protest to Kido pertaining to this. He glanced aside at Kido, who tensed up the moment she opened her bento box. Well, how do I put it? People like Fumika-san have quite the personality. Well, actually, I just want to work. She doesn't seem like a bad person. She's a nice person. But well, if she really likes you, she'll dote on you. Sometimes her delusions might be a little more serious. I'll sacrifice myself then. There's no bodily harm, right? Probably not. Well, sorta. Can you please don't lack confidence here? A man hesitated over whether he should retort, but he decided not to, as it was not because of Kido. He then opened the bento Mahiru made. Shuto made pasta for dinner the previous night, so it contained the leftovers, along with the side dishes both Mahiru and Shuto made. He really felt apologetic to have them cook these side dishes for him so early in the morning. But he could not bring himself to stop them since they seemed really happy about this. On a side note, Amain's parents would be leaving before his return, so they bade farewell that morning. It was a short time, probably because he agreed to return home during the winter break. Mahiru, however, looked reluctant as she sent them off with a smile, since they would still meet again. Ah, Sheena-san made it? Aman opened the lid, found the dashimaki Mahiru made, and was content. Kido observed Amane, showed a smile brimming with curiosity, and asked, Mahiru and Dad made it. Actually, my dad's still around. Your dad can cook. Mine too. Mom can't cook and can't do housework. Dad does everything. I think Kaori-san's a special case, though. It seemed Kaori was the name of Kido's mother. It seemed she was completely incapable of housework. That's why my parents hope that I can do housework. Ah, I can, though. They want to raise you as a good girl, and they really did, but you somehow end up with a muscle fetish. I'm about to cry. It's your fault, Sokyan. Don't push the blame. Kayano pinched at Kido's cheeks, and the latter protested while making vague noises. Amani burst out laughing. Such was the distance between childhood friends, though it was probably because they were still dating. It was a refreshing feeling to see another couple different from Itsuki and Chitose. What are you laughing at? Nothing. Just that you two are on good terms. You don't have the right to say that. You're being so flirty with Shina-san. It's not exactly what you say. In any case, you're flirting so much, it's blinding me. Kido pointed her index finger at Amain. Stop pointing fingers, and Kayano grabbed her hand. Nice chemistry, Amani thought, and sighed silently. I don't mean that. So that's just you being all lovey-dovey every day. That's amazing. Shut up. But Shina-san's the reason why you can make up your mind to work. I think it's great to act for the future. Oh, so you're suddenly starting with part-time work because of Shina-san? Kayano did not know of this. Not because Kido did not mention so, but because Amani told Kido not to go around talking about it. Kayano nodded understandingly, and Kido looked a little distraught. She might be worried, thinking that she did not abide by her promise, and blurted out that he was working for Mahiru's sake. Well, since Amani would be colleagues with Kayano, it was pointless to conceal the fact, and it was a matter of time until he would be questioned. It was fine as long as nobody mentioned so to Amane. Keep it a secret from Mahiru. I want to surprise her. You hear that, Sok-chan? You can't say that. You're the blabbermouth Ayaka. Oh yay. Kido got a flick on the forehead and covered it while looking teary. Kayano gave her a reluctant glance and saw a speechless Amane, only to smile awkwardly. Anyway, I understand. I'll help you out however I can. Thanks. Thank you too for being able to be friends with Ayaka. No way. I'm not at the point where I need you to worry about me, Sok-chan. But you always blurt things out. I do not. Kido pouted upon hearing Kayano's criticism, slapping at the abs that were said to be healthy if he stripped, according to Kido. Amane watched on, feeling all warm and fuzzy. Chapter 246. People have their own interests. About work. You'll have to wait a while. Probably for a week or two, since they'll have to arrange your shift and prepare your uniform. The duo stopped their couple bicker and started eating again, when Kido suddenly remembered and muttered so. Well, it's not like I'm hoping to start immediately. What uniform? It's not as fancy as the festival. It'll be simpler, don't worry. Same goes for the female ones. It's not all frilly like that. And I've been wondering what would I do, if it's as impressive as that cafe. The other staff were at the back counter when he met Itomaki, and he did not know what they were wearing, but they were not clothes he had to worry about. He was relieved. The clothes worn during the cultural festival was a little more formal and somewhat glamorous. It would be unbearable to wear such clothes, even though it was for work. I told them about your sizes. Fujimiya-kun, is that fine? I'm fine with that. But how did you know? I saw them during the festival. And it's obvious anyway. A guy's sizes is mostly the same through the clothes, she smiled. Perhaps it was the skill she obtained from her muscle fetish. Next to her, Kayano clearly looked dumbfounded. Just call her for what she is, a pervert, and said these words that were a little rude to her. I can only get a rough idea, of course, and I can't really tell the muscle mass without touching It's not sexual harassment. I'll ask for permission before checking. Oh, okay, yep. Saves the effort of telling her the sizes, I guess. Look, Ayaka, he's scared of you. You don't have to praise this person, Fujimiya. Don't speak of me like a complete stranger. Kido pouted and looked really adorable as she fumed away. Once her eyes met Amane's, she lowered her eyes apologetically. Sorry for showing you such an embarrassing side. It's fine. It's not the first time. Ugh, that hurts. But you're not wrong. I basically showed it during the festival. Well, I understand that you have different interests from others, and I don't really think any different about it as long as it doesn't hurt everyone. Everyone has their own interests, and I don't really feel uncomfortable or that I'll badmouth anyone. Everyone had their own good points, and should be respected as long as they did not harm others. Amma never thought of excluding anyone just because of some differences. That was not what he was taught at home. And also, He really could not assume it had nothing to do with him, since recently he had a feeling that Mahiru was starting to have a muscle fetish. He did not intend to reject or deny anyone, but he was a little terrified, so he remained tentative. Anyway, I don't really have the right to grumble about anyone. Amain muttered so as he picked up the dashimaki Mahiru made. Kido then shivered, seemingly impressed, and then she smiled as she slapped at Amaini's shoulder. You're really well taught, or a good person, Fujimiya-kun. No wonder Shina-san likes you. Ayaka. What is it, Sok-chan? You jealous? Relax. I'm focused on you. Ah, I know that, but you just hit Fujimiya. Amain lost his grip on the chopsticks when he got slapped, and the dashimaki rolled onto the black vinegar sauce coasted on the meat dumplings made by her. Luckily, it did not fall onto the sheet or his clothes, but he liked the delicate taste of the dashimaki. He was stunned, stupefied, that the taste had changed. Kayano assumed that Kido had knocked him out. Amani stared at the dashimaki covered in dark brown sauce, which caused Kido to panic. So sorry. I didn't mean it. It's fine. It's still edible. I'll just eat off the skin first. Whoa, you look so sad. I'm really sorry. I'll kowtow to Shina-san to make you another one. I'm fine. Aman was not that unhappy, but Kido frantically apologized. He smiled, and for some reason Kido was really sorry as she lowered her head once again. Chapter 247, Pampering Pro. You really love dashimaki? Amani-kun? It seemed Mahiru had heard the explanation from Kido, and she seemed to recall this matter on the way back from school, for she said so with a smile. She was giggling away, for she might have found it interesting. But it was so graceful, and there were surrounding gazes upon them. Stop laughing. Amane pinched the hand he was holding, but her smile did not abate. He really wanted to pinch her face, but he was holding her bag in one hand and her hand in the other, so he could not do so. But there is dashimaki in the bento every once in a while. There were some leftovers in the morning, and I do make them at night sometimes. That's that. I wanted it for lunch. Goodness, Kido-san apologized to me so seriously, and even begged me. It seemed Kido had felt responsible for it, and obediently bowed to Mahiru. Aman himself had no intention of reproaching Kido, for he was the one who dropped it due to his own miscue. The dashimaki did not drop onto the floor, and the taste was the only thing that changed slightly. Well, I think I need to apologize to Kido. I'm just lamenting to myself after all. She said your face was terrible. But that's your dashimaki. I can make it for you anytime. Even for dinner? You wish to swap out tonight's menu? You really are hopeless. Goodness. Mahiru sounded as though she was begrudging, but her voice seemed a little elated, and she probably was not unwilling. Amane felt a little ticklish upon seeing her give a serene smile. But he had a feeling she was treating him like a child, and he nearly pouted. Barely. I shall add it to the menu tonight then. Do dote on me lots tonight in return. This request? Sure, I'm hoping you would ask. Mahiru was usually sturdy, and Amani would oblige if she wanted him to pamper her, or even do so without her asking. One might say his interest was in pampering her. He agreed without a second thought, and Mahiru, the one who mentioned this, started to reel back. That will trouble me too. Why? Because you do not know moderation, Amane-kun. Am I that violent? I do not mean that. It is just that you will pamper me, without stopping the moment you decide on it. Since I decided on it, of course I'll do it. I will feel unbearable if I am pampered too much. My waist will weaken, and I will not stand upright. So she muttered so, and Amane burst out laughing. This doting was merely just skinship, kissing, and embrace, but Mahiru found it unbearable. If he devoted himself to pampering her completely, she would crumble completely, and he had seen this situation far too often. It seemed she did not want that to happen. Anyway, excessiveness is a no-go. Please do so normally. I can't do normal, you know. That's my normal. This is the skill of those with the Fujimiya's bloodline. I'm not as good as Dad, though. Amani did not have the pampering skills of his father, and he would not do so naturally. To him, his father was really kind to his family and would grant his deep love. Amane hoped that his father was a little more poised, but his father was an ideal, and he wanted to become such a person. He did not think he had attained this ideal, for he felt that he lacked some emotional awareness. Oof, I really wish Shihoko-san can hear this. It is a pity she is not here. Why mention Mom? She went back already. Amane's parents had left, and obviously it was because they had to work the next day. Their weekends were never this lively, and once they returned home, the contrast seemed so unnerving. It is quiet now. You're really happy when you're with Mom. Of course. I got to hear stories about you, Amane-kun. How about a supersized portion of doting? No, this is a little... Aman decided to pamper her lots to coerce her into telling what his parents said. She panicked, but it was her fault for letting her tongue slip. Aman had intended to control himself if he did not notice so, but there was no if this time. Now how do I give her lots? Aman's lips curled, and Mahiru showed a frozen look, head-butted into his arm, and maintained this pose until they reached the supermarket. Chapter 248. Wanting to be pampered. Earm, I feel you need to control yourself a little, Amane-kun. After dinner, Aman punished Mahiru with a huge dosage of pampering, and Mahiru blushed as she looked up at him. They were merely together on the sofa, and he was just touching her, but she was rather embarrassed. There was no actual sexual contact per se, and he did not touch her at anywhere inappropriate. The reason Mahiru's face was so red might be because Amane had been patting her head while looking at her face, or because he had her sit on his thighs. You got to tell me what you know if you want me to stop. I said that it was not anything you would be worried about. In detail? For there was the time when you swung on the swing, hit your head, and cried out loud. And also, you wanted to kiss Shihoko-san on the cheek and bumped your head too hard or something. Guilty. No reason to spare you. Why? In his younger days, a man was too influenced by his mother's passion that he overdid things and often messed up. He, however, wondered to himself why he deserved such karma for Mahiru to know. The matter of kissing his mother was not something that should be mentioned to any man. If this was not a black history, one had to wonder what was. Surely it was Amane who was more embarrassed than Mahiru, who was being pampered. It did not count as he failed to do so, but he nearly brought his face onto Shihoko's and kissed her. He had a migraine just from the mere mention. I told you not to listen. Aman implied through his gestures, slid his fingers down her waist, and caressed her along with her body warmth. She shivered, and her tense face looked up at him. Naturally, she was begging for him to stop, but unfortunately for her, it was a punishment, and he had no intention to stop. Shihoko was probably the one who first mentioned this, but there was no doubt Mahiru enjoyed hearing so. Mahiru was afraid of tickles, and Amane did not go all out when tickling her. She squealed with a voice shriller than usual and firmly latched onto him. She did not run away, for she probably feared losing her balance. So sorry. Anything else you heard? No, not this time. This time. It is a matter of context. Even if she did mention everything. You're going to keep listening, aren't you, Missy? Isn't it unfair that my black history is the only thing dug up? B, but if we are talking about mine, there is a prior issue, and there is nothing worth talking about. Once Mahiru quipped, Amane stopped tickling. It might bring back bad memories to her, for she did not receive the care and love of her parents, and she surely did not wish to recall them. Sorry for mentioning this stuff. Amane lowered his eyebrows and observed Mahiru, who seemed to have understood what he was thinking, gently giggling. You do not have to worry. It is nothing significant to me now. I am very content now. This is enough. Mahiru. And I used to be very obedient, unlike you, Amane-kun. Sorry for being playful, but yeah, I can't imagine you being lively, Mahiru. Once he was teased at, Amane pinched Mahiru's cheeks as retaliation and tried to imagine a Mahiru in her childhood. Truly, he could not imagine her being lively. She had always demanded of herself to be an obedient child, and she certainly would be a lot docile back then. He could imagine her being all obedient, and wanted to see how it would be like seeing Mahiru all lively. I wonder if there'll be a kid like Mahiru. He had a feeling that no matter which side they resembled more of, their children would be obedient, but that would only matter once they were born. Cute is cute, no matter whether they were obedient, lively, or stubborn. It would be best if they resembled Mahiru and not as unadorable as Amani. So Amain quietly imagined these scenes and felt all warm and fuzzy. Mahiru then buried her face into his chest, rubbing onto it. I was not actually cute back then, you know? I behaved well simply because I wished to be praised. I could do a lot of things when I was young, but I was quietly told that I was a useless one. Who said that? Probably the mothers of the children who played with me. Amane-kun, your face, please take note. I can't help it. The people who would badmouth children just loud enough for them to hear were unreliable. Amain frowned hard and pulled away from Mahiru. Children were often easily hurt, and yet those women with children clearly conveyed their negative emotions. Aman really wanted to reproach the women he did not know, but it was all in the past, and nothing to do with. Luckily, Mahiru was pulled out of the mire and did not seem emotional about it. Amane was really anxious, however, and wondered what he would have done if Mahiru was hurt to the point where she could not be healed. Do not worry, for Koyuki-san doted on me and praised me lots. Good job, Koyuki-san. Amain quietly gave a thumbs up to the woman whose face he did not know, the woman who raised Mahiru in her parents' stead. He ruffled Mahiru's head and embraced her while she was still recollecting her memories. I am calmer than you think I am, Amani-kun. The things my own parents said about me hurt me more than those I do not know of. Mahiru, I do not wish to say about any unhappy things. We shall stop for now. All I can say is, I felt unbearable back then, but it was that past that I get to know you and form this relationship. I will not acknowledge that past, so please do not show such a face. You really worry too much. So Mahiru smiled. Amane brought his lips to her forehead and embraced her once again. She wriggled in his clutches, looking relieved, and then kissed him. And now, you love me, Amane-kun. I'm fine. Such an adorable one. Aman murmured as he saw the bashful Mahiru up close. He decided to pamper her more on this day and kissed her once again. Chapter 249. About the part-time job. Better say this before I forgot. I'll be returning home late once I start work, so you can eat first. I'll be fine. Aman had forgotten to mention so, and stopped his hand from caressing her more as he said so. Mahiru remained in his clutches, blinking her large eyes. We're discussing the shift schedules, but usually I'll have to stay until the shop closes, and I'll probably reach home at about 9 p.m. I can't let you wait until that late. I shall wait. Aman felt apologetic about letting Mahiru wait for him with an empty stomach, and wanted her to have dinner first, but she answered so in a matter of fact. What are you saying? Such was the look she gave him, and he could only lower his eyes awkwardly. No, but you'll be hungry, right? I wish for my heart to be filled more than my stomach. I shall wait for you, Aman-kun. Eating alone feels tasteless, and I do not hate the idea of waiting for you. I'll be very late, though. Not really, or do you hate having me wait for you? No way. I just hate that I'll have to make you wait. I will not be simply waiting, though. There are a lot of things I can do while waiting. Just a change of order. Mahiru told Amane without looking displeased in the slightest, You really like to worry, and said so with a smile, poking at his face. How can I not support you when you are working hard for what you dream of? I can only prepare some hot dinner and bath water, though. That's more than enough for me, actually. The most important thing is you welcoming me when I return home. It'll perk me up immediately. I suppose it is a small favor if the mere sight of me can perk you up. You don't have to force yourself, though. Think about yourself first. Mahiru probably would prioritize Amain more than anything else, even if she had anything going on. She, however, smiled and remained silent. Amane had no intention of binding Mahiru, but it seemed she really hated to be split from him and did not intend to defy her own will. She loved him so. She put him in his thoughts, and he was glad about it, but he did not want her to force herself. Aman-kun, you should not force yourself to work either, you know? I do not know what you want, but I am worried, since you will do everything once you make up your mind. No way. How can I make you worry? I was a little worried when you said you wanted to work. I cannot say that you are very sociable. It's true, but it just sounds a little rude. It was a fact everyone acknowledged. But if Mahiru mentioned so, Amane really did not know how he should react. It's not like I can't socialize completely, Amane grumbled, though it was not much of a refute, and Mahiru made a little sigh. I say you are not exactly sociable, but you usually would not expand your social circle. Amane-kun, you should be able to do so. I don't really want to make friends with lots of people. Just a small circle is fine. But you will if you put your mind to it. You can change modes after all. Why are you sighing? I have been wondering, what shall I do if you are popular? Amane-kun. A man burst out laughing once he heard this rather adorable worry. Mahiru puffed her cheeks angrily in return. Relax, I won't be popular. Not at all. You have not understood the opinions people have of you recently. Amane-kun. Say, looking at the mood and prices of that cafe, I think the target demographics those old uncles with refined tastes. I won't be popular, and even if I do, so what? The younger folk would prefer a chain outlet rather than a personal cafe. Aman had a look at the menu, and the prices were a little expensive, unsuitable for high school students or college students to simply have taste. Befittingly, the taste there was great, and the slow atmosphere appeared to be very popular with the older ones. One reason might be that the owner was quite the babe. According to Kayano, hardly any young female customers would visit. Amani was thus sufficiently relieved to work there. Anyway, do relax. The owner looks like a nice person too. Sure. For the time being, Mahiru accepted Amane's explanation, and he rubbed her head, consoling her. She seemed a little unhappy, or maybe happy, for her lips curled into a smile as she let Amane continue to rub. Chapter 250. First time working. A week after Amane decided where he would work, he received news from the owner Itomaki. She prepared his uniform and his future shift. He would work 4 days a week, 3 workdays and a Saturday. As Amane was in his second year of high school, he had to prepare for his exams. This arrangement was also similar to those with club activities and would not affect his studies. The exams would be held the following year, and Aman had no intention to slack on his studies. The work arrangements should be fine for him. I'm starting work today. Go back for now, Aman said to Mahiru on the first day of work, right after school. His heart ached a little once he saw her clearly forlorn face, but he could only keep it to himself after all. It was to be expected, since he was working for Mahiru's smile. You're starting work today, Aman. Do your best. Don't tail me. I won't. How can I trust you when you paused like that? Chitos, listening intently next to them, was a little suspicious, but Aman took his precautions. She probably would not follow him. I don't mind once I get used to this, but don't come over until here. It's embarrassing if I don't serve the customers well. You didn't do well during the cultural festival? I thought you were rather skilled. That's so-so. And thanks to Kido's training. Well, I suppose I should be able to visit you there soon, Amane-kun. You have quite the impressive learning ability. I'm looking forward to it. Mahiru earnestly prepared to send Amane off. He scratched his cheek and then patted her soft flax-colored hair. She was shocked and widened her eyes. He looked at her face, his face too smiling. Yup, I'll try my best to get used to it as soon as possible, and hurry home soon. Please do. I will wait for you no matter how late you will be, though. Of course, I'll work hard while looking forward to dinner. They whispered these words as their classmates had yet to know that they were living next to each other. Chitos and Itsuki overheard this conversation, the former smiling away, the latter catcalling away, so Amane gave the latter a gentle backhand. It did not hurt, but Itsuki exaggerated the contact as he tumbled back onto Chitose. Chitose observed the bashful Mahiru, your heavy Ikun, saying so as she shoved Itsuki aside. It seemed Itsuki was still sad about it. Amane laughed once he saw them, and Mahiru too giggled. Itsuki was a little awkward and jabbed at Amane's flank as retaliation. After they ended the conversation reluctantly, Aman left school for his workplace. He was assigned to work on the same day as his schoolmate and workplace senior Kayano, as this was his first day at work. He waited to meet up with Kayano at the school entrance, and they went together. Kayano might not be a talker himself, for he remained silent until they reached the train station. They needed to take a train ride to the workplace, but it was 2 stations away, near the school. In fact, it was not too far away from his own house, no further than Itsuki's and Chitose's place. Mahiru probably would not be tired waiting for him at home once he got off work. The workplace was not too far from the station, and there should not be much inconvenience. Your house is within walking distance from school, Fujimiya. Amane did not have a seasonal ticket and needed to top up the value of his IC card, so Kayano asked. Yeah, I live in an apartment close to school. That's good. It's close, and you get to sleep a little more. I'm rather comfortable if I'm waking up to go to school, but Mahiru wakes me up. A man usually would have some time before going to school other than the weekends, and that time had only increased ever since Mahiru started making breakfast for him. He could wake up on his own even without her calling him, but he had her do so that he could open his eyes to her voice every day, enjoying the blissful moments. Such selfish thoughts would remain at the bottom of his heart. That's surprising. So Kayano noted softly. I thought you would be somewhat reliable. I guess I'm looking decent recently if you're saying that. I'm actually a good-for-nothing. His private life was no longer erratic as compared to the past, but he often relied on Mahiru. He really could not consider himself reliable. Of course, Amane would not leave everything to Mahiru, and he would do anything he could. He would profess, however, that he was a little tardy. He was introduced to Kayano during the cultural festival. Since Kayano found Amane reliable, it seemed Amane's efforts were decent. I think your standards of good-for-nothing is different. Well, Ayake herself might be worse. Kido, look at her. You see that she's reliable? She's a complete lazy bum of a slob at home. I don't have the right to say her, though. I can't really imagine that. She's reliable outdoors, but if I don't pay attention, she's lazier than me. She's taking care of me outdoors, but indoors, I'm the one doing that. Quote, I think she's just flirting with you. Kido did have her moments, but she should be a strong, considerate, reliable girl. She worked hard to not show her tardiness outdoors and only showed it to her boyfriend. She probably was just fawning around. Kayano blinked away and awkwardly looked diagonally down. Wait, am I being lovey-dovey now? Sorry. It's fine. I don't mind. Aman, too awkward, averted his eyes once he saw how embarrassed Kayano was. I might be the same too, being all lovey-dovey without knowing. So he thought, and pursed his nearly quivering lips out of shame.